The fake errors pushed me off the rooftop with a smile. When I opened my eyes again, I had been reborn into my infancy, witnessing the nurse swap the two of us with my own eyes, and my biological mother was watching it all, fully conscious, so she had been reborn too, so the tragedy of my past life was all her doing. In this life, I'll make them watch how a weed trampled into the mud can uproot an entire garden in one excruciating pain. This is my final sensation, the moment my body hit the ground. The sickening crunch of bone was unmistakable. Then came the sight of Ivy's contorted face. She stood at the roof's edge, looking down at me, a triumphant smirk playing on her lips. "Sorry, sis." Her voice was sickly sweet, but Mother said, "The Shin family only needs one daughter." Darkness swallowed me whole. I thought this was the end, and yet a blinding light suddenly flooded my vision. Instinctively, I tried to raise my hand to shield my eyes, only to find my arm small and weak, swaddled in the soft fabric of an infant's blanket, a healthy baby girl, 3 kilograms, born to Regina in bed 7. The nurse's voice announced from above I had been reborn, and I was back at the very moment of my birth. Before I could even process the shock, the nurse was already carrying me out of the delivery room. Through a gap in the swaddling blanket, I saw a face that was both familiar and strange. Regina, my birth mother. In my past life, I didn't find out I was a switched-at-birth child until I was 18, but when I found my birth parents with high hopes, what awaited me was Ivy's hostility and Regina's cold indifference. In the end, Ivy pushed me from the Shin Corporation building, bringing my short life to a close too. At this moment, Regina lies on the delivery bed, her face pale but her expression clear and alert. Her gaze followed me in the nurse's arms, her eyes holding an inscrutable complexity. "Wait," she said suddenly, her voice weak but firm. The nurse stopped. "Is there something you need, Mrs. Shin?" Regina's gaze shifted past me to the other bassinet in the corner of the delivery room. "That baby, from bed 8, right? May I see her?" My heart sank. Bed 8, that had to be Ivy. The nurse hesitated. "That's against the rules. I just want to see her," Regina said with a weary smile. "My husband always wanted twin girls." The nurse finally relented, placing Ivy and me side by side in front of Regina. I struggled desperately to make a sound, to get someone's attention, but my newborn limitations meant I could only manage a faint whimper. Regina's gaze shifted between the two infants before finally settling on Ivy. I saw a flicker of familiar tenderness in her eyes, the same look she had reserved for Ivy in our past life. "They look so alike," Regina whispered softly, her fingers gently tracing Ivy's tiny face. Just then, a sudden commotion erupted outside the delivery room, with a family member shouting loudly for a nurse. The nurse holding me hurriedly placed us back in the bassinet, saying, "Mrs. Shin, I'll be right back." After the nurse left, Regina suddenly sat up, moving with an agility that seemed impossible for someone who had just given birth. She stared at me and Ivy, a strange glint flickering in her eyes. "I can't believe I've actually been reborn." Her voice was barely a whisper, yet it hit my ears like a thunderclap. "This time, I will protect Ivy." My blood ran cold. Regina is a reincarnator too. She reached out to adjust the wristbands for me and Ivy, her movements so practiced it was as if she had done it countless times. Then, she pressed the call button, lay back down, and resumed the facade of a frail new mother. The nurse hurried back in. "Mrs. Shin, I'm feeling a bit lightheaded," Regina said weakly. "Could you please call a doctor for me? Also, my husband will be here soon. Please tell him our daughter is healthy." The nurse nodded and left, completely unaware that the wristbands had been switched. I watched helplessly as fate once again spiraled toward the abyss. Regina deliberately switched me and Ivy. Even with a second chance at life, she still chose Ivy. 3 soon after, a nurse carrying Ivy approached Regina. "Mrs. Shin, this is your daughter." As for me, I was picked up by another nurse and taken to the woman in bed 8, an ordinary woman with a weary face. "Congratulations, ma'am, it's a healthy baby girl." The delivery room door closed before my eyes. The last thing I saw was the look of pure contentment on Regina's face as she held Ivy. My birth mother had abandoned me once again. I grew up slowly in the poverty and despair of that previous life. At 10 years old, I huddled in the cramped wardrobe, devouring the old magazines I'd salvaged from the trash by the sliver of light seeping through the door crack. My foster father was on another drunken rampage in the living room, the shattering sound of glass bottles against the wall intertwined with the shrieks of my foster mother, Sila, the most familiar soundtrack of my childhood. "Useless woman, can't even bear a son." Grover's roar made the wardrobe door tremble slightly. Instinctively, I hugged my knees tighter, trying to make myself as small as possible. The pain from being pushed down the stairs in my past life still haunts my nightmares, but compared to my current existence, that moment of agony almost feels like a release. Outside the wardrobe, after the sounds of a scuffle, Sila began to cry, calling me a worthless daughter who got her scolded by her husband. My fingers tightened unconsciously around the edge of the magazine. They didn't know I had been deliberately switched, let alone that my birth mother, Regina, had watched it all happen. The commotion in the living room gradually died down. Grover had probably passed out drunk. I carefully climbed out of the wardrobe, tiptoed through the cluttered living room, and slipped into the cramped balcony under the moonlight. I opened the magazine to the article about the Shin group. In the photo, Regina, dressed in a white suit, elegantly held her husband Arthur's arm, with the exquisitely beautiful Ivy standing beside them. The headline read, Shin Group Charity Gala, Heiress Ivy's piano solo captivates the audience. My fingertips gently traced over Regina's face in the photograph. In my past life, I naively believed that finding my birth mother would grant me the love I'd always dreamed of. It wasn't until the moment I fell from the Shin Corporation building that I understood blood ties can't buy love. Looking at your precious magazine again, Sila's voice suddenly rang out behind me. I quickly stuffed the magazine under my clothes, but it was already too late. She grabbed a fistful of my hair, her breath reeking of alcohol as it hit my face. You little brat, always daydreaming. With her other hand, she roughly pulled out the magazine. What's this? Stealing money again to buy this useless junk. I didn't steal anything. I found it at the dump. I struggled to explain, my scalp burning with a tearing pain. How dare you talk back? Sila raised her hand, and I instinctively shut my eyes, but the expected slap never came. I opened my eyes to see Grover swaying in the doorway. Enough, he said. We still need her to cook tomorrow. Who's gonna serve me if you break her? Reluctantly, Sila let go, but she gave me a vicious kick in the stomach. No breakfast for you tomorrow morning. I huddled on the balcony, only daring to gently massage my aching stomach after their snores began to echo under the moonlight. I opened the torn magazine and carefully pieced together the photograph of Regina. Why, I silently asked the elegant woman in the photo, given a second chance at life, why would you do this to me? No one answered, only the bright lights of the upscale neighborhood in the distance remained, like another world mocking my naivety. For early the next morning, I got up at the crack of dawn, ignoring my hunger. I made breakfast, then quietly slipped out the door with my worn-out backpack. School was my only refuge, even though the kids there often picked on me for being the poor one. Look, it's Trash Girl. As soon as I entered the school gate, a few boys surrounded me. Find any treasures today? I kept my head down and quickened my pace, but the ringleader boy yanked my backpack. Everyone, look, Trash Girl's bag is sewn from rags. Amidst the jeering laughter, my backpack strap snapped, sending my books scattering across the ground. I knelt on the ground, gathering my things, when suddenly I heard the sharp crack of a slap. You've gone too far. I looked up to see a girl in an immaculate school uniform blocking my path. Her hair was pulled into a high ponytail, and she stood there like an angry little peacock. Sonny, what's it to you? The boy said, holding his cheek, though his tone had noticeably softened. If you bully anyone again, I'm telling the principal. The girl named Sunny bent down to pick up my books, then took my hand. Let's go. Her palm was warm and dry, the first genuine kindness I had felt in 10 years. Thank you, I whispered as we reached the corner of the teaching building, reaching out to take my books back, but Sunny didn't let go. Your hand is bleeding, she said. She pulled out a handkerchief embroidered with little flowers and gently wrapped it around the scrape on my palm. I'm Sunny, from Class 3, Grade 5, and you, Phoenix, Class 1, Grade 5, I answered, instinctively using the polite phrasing I'd learned from A magazine. Sunny's eyes lit up. Your voice is so nice. It sounds like a TV announcer's. She hesitated for a moment. Would you like to be my friend? A friend. That word is a luxury I can't afford. In my past life, I never had a true friend, right up until the moment I died. I'm poor, I said honestly. I probably don't deserve to be your friend. Sunny just smiled. My dad says real friends don't care about things like that. She lowered her voice mysteriously. Actually, my family used to be really poor too. It wasn't until last year, when my dad struck it rich in business, that I transferred here. No one else knows, and just like that, I made my first friend in this new life. 5, after school, Sunny insisted on walking me home. When we reached the entrance to the slum, her eyes widened in surprise. You live here? I nodded, bracing myself for the look of disgust I'd seen on other classmates' faces. But Sunny just bit her lip. See you tomorrow. Watching her figure disappear into the distance, I turned and walked toward the dilapidated apartment building I called home, but then, at the corner, a familiar black sedan made my blood run cold. The Shin family car. The window was half open, revealing Regina's elegant profile. She was staring intently in the direction Sunny had gone, a thoughtful smile playing on her lips. I ducked behind the wall, my heart pounding like thunder. Why is she here? Is she watching me? I didn't dare move on until the car had driven away. When I got Home, Sila, for once, wasn't passed out drunk on the sofa. Instead, she was pacing back and forth excitedly. "You little brat, you're finally back." She yanked me over. "Start packing. We're moving. Yes, someone's sponsoring our move to a better neighborhood." Sila's face was flushed with excitement. "They said it's a poverty assistance program. They even arranged a job for your dad." A sharp pang twisted in my gut. This was no coincidence. The moment Regina saw me becoming friends with Sunny, she arranged to have us transferred. She doesn't want to give me any chance to turn my life around. When I asked softly, "Tomorrow," Sila waved impatiently. "Go pack up your junk." That night, I slipped out of the house, ran to a public phone booth, and dialed Sunny's number from memory. "Hello," answered a gentle woman's voice. Is Sunny there? Please, this is her classmate, Phoenix." After a brief silence, Sunny's cheerful voice came through. "Phoenix, what made you call?" "I'm moving away. I won't be able to come to school tomorrow." I tried hard to keep my voice from trembling. "Thank you for helping me today. You're my first friend." "Wait, where are you moving to? I don't know." I cut her off, "But I promise I'll come back to find you. Wait for me." After hanging up the phone, I stood motionless in the biting wind. Regina wanted to sever all my hope, but I wouldn't let her succeed in this life. I will remember everyone who was kind to me, and I will make every person who hurt me pay the price. 6. The next day, we moved to a neighborhood on the other side of the city. It was a slight improvement over the old slum, but it was still rundown. Grover came back from his first day at the new job, beaming. My salary doubled. Meanwhile, I transferred to a new school, a place even worse than the last. The teachers here were half-hearted, and the students formed cliques. I endured it quietly, seizing every chance to learn. The school library became my sanctuary, though its collection was limited. I devoured every book I could get my hands on. After the Grovers fell asleep each night, I would secretly practice the etiquette and dance moves I'd learned from books. 3 months passed like this. Then one day after school, I saw that black car parked at the school gate. This time, the rear window was fully lowered, and Regina's face came clearly into view. Our eyes met for a second. Her gaze was cold and appraising, as if she were looking at a substandard product. The car window rolled up, and the vehicle sped off into the distance. That night, I had a dream. In the dream, I stood in the Shin family's opulent living room. Ivy, wearing a beautiful princess dress, was nestled in Regina's arms, acting coy. As I approached, Regina tightened her embrace around Ivy and said to me, "You are not worthy of being my daughter." I woke with a start, my pillow soaked through. I got up in the dark and pulled a tin box from under my bed. Inside was the pocket change I'd secretly saved up over the months, along with coins earned from collecting scrap. After counting it all, I smiled with satisfaction. It wasn't much, but it was enough for a bus ticket into the city and a small gift. Sunny's birthday is next week, and I promised I'd come back for her. Regina wants to trap me in the mud, but she's underestimated the resolve of someone reborn. I'm only 10 years old. I have plenty of time to grow, and when I'm strong enough, I'll make sure everyone knows that Phoenix is not a lamb to the slaughter. Outside the window, the cold moonlight fell upon my tin box, where the coins reflected a faint yet resolute glimmer. 5 years later, I stood before the grand gates of St. John's Academy, just as I had dreamed, my fingers tightening around the straps of my faded, washed-out school bag. Though housed in the body of a 15-year-old was a soul that had once lived to 25. I still couldn't suppress the trembling in my fingertips. "Look over there, a scholarship student, I presume," I heard. "He's here on a scholarship. Look at his clothes, they're frayed and he's still wearing them." "Shoo, keep your voice down. He can hear you." The whispers slithered into my ears like venomous snakes. I lifted my chin and strode onto the campus. Sunlight filtered through the stained glass of the Gothic architecture, casting dappled patterns of light on the floor. In a past life, I had fantasized countless times about setting foot in this elite institution. Now, I had finally made it, albeit in this manner. "New student," a voice, sickly sweet, came from behind me. The moment I turned around, my blood seemed to freeze in my veins. Ivy, she wore a perfectly tailored school uniform, her pleated skirt revealing a pair of slender legs, chestnut curls cascaded over her shoulders, and an angelic smile graced her face. The murderer who pushed me off the building in my past life was now standing right in front of me. Pretending we were strangers, "I'm Ivy, a member of the student council's welcoming committee." She extended her hand, her nails neatly manicured and polished with a soft pink lacquer. "You must be Phoenix, right? The principal specifically asked us to take good care of you." I stared at her hand for a couple of seconds before reaching out, my touch brief and fleeting. "Thanks, your dorm is in Building B. I'll show you the way." As she turned, the ends of her hair brushed past my face, carrying a hint of her fragrance. "Oh, by the way, do you want to apply for a grant to get A new school uniform, that won't be necessary, I replied calmly. The school rules only specify we wear the standard style. They don't say anything about it being new or old. Ivy's step faltered almost imperceptibly before she quickly resumed her graceful stride. The dormitory was much better than I had imagined. A 4-person room with a private bathroom. My bed was by the window, bathed in perfect sunlight. Ivy stood at the doorway, showing no intention of coming in. The opening ceremony is this morning at 10 in the main auditorium, she said, handing me a class schedule. You're in Class A, grade 10, right next to my room. Let me know if you need anything. As she turned to leave, I clearly saw a flash of cold light in her eyes. The game is on 7. After the principal's lengthy speech at the opening ceremony, he announced that a representative from the Board of Trustees would now address the audience. As Regina walked onto the stage in her high heels, I dug my fingernails deep into my palms. It had been 5 years, and she was even more elegant and refined, her every gesture exuding the poise of a high society lady. Her gaze swept over the students in the audience, lingering on me for less than a second, yet it sent a sharp pang of pain twisting through my gut. A special welcome to the 5 students who have received full scholarships this year. Regina's voice was gentle yet firm. Street Johns has always been committed to nurturing talent, regardless of background. Thunderous applause filled the room. I saw Ivy in the front row straighten her back, a proud smile on her face. All new students, please report to the laboratory building at 2 p.m. to collect your course materials, Regina concluded. 3 of the top-performing students will receive overseas exchange opportunities, specially sponsored by the Shin Group. After the meeting, Ivy immediately stopped me. Phoenix, the lab building is on the east side of campus and can be tricky to find. I'll wait for you by the fountain at 2 o'clock to take you there. I looked at her in sincere smile and nodded. My memories from a past life told me the lab building was clearly on the west side. At 5 minutes to 2, I stood in front of the lab building in the west campus area, watched Ivy waiting by the distant fountain, and walked straight in. It was 10 past 2 when Ivy came running up, out of breath, just as I was coming out with my materials. Why did you come by yourself? Her face was flushed from running. I waited for you for half an hour. Really? I feigned surprise, but the map on the bulletin board showed the lab building was in the west zone. Ivy's expression twisted for a split second before smoothing over. The student union must have put up the wrong one. I'm so sorry. It's fine, I said with a smile. I wasn't late anyway. Round 1 went to me. The days that followed were like a tango of simmering tension. Ivy's provocations were relentless. My locker suddenly wouldn't open. My homework notebook vanished without a trace, and during PE class, someone cut the laces on my sneakers, yet I always managed to get out of a tight spot, thanks to the master key I carried, my pre-scanned digital homework backups, and spare shoelaces. During Friday's chemistry lab, the teacher announced we'd be doing a group experiment. We'll group by student number, the teacher said, adjusting his glasses. Phoenix, you're with Ivy. A ripple of commotion went through the classroom. Ivy glided gracefully to the seat beside me. What a coincidence, she said. Let's do our best together. The experiment involved preparing copper, 2 sulfate crystals. Ivy volunteered to record the data, while I handled the procedures. As I concentrated on heating the solution, I caught her out of the corner of my eye, secretly altering the numbers in the logbook. Ivy, I said suddenly, could you hand me that beaker? She instinctively reached out, and I seized the moment to retrieve my phone. From under the lab bench, on the screen was the live recording of her tampering with the data. Her face instantly drained of color. It's 5 grams of copper sulfate, not 5, I said calmly, unless you want our experiment to fail. Ivy bit her lower lip and silently corrected the data. At the end of the experiment, our group produced the most perfect blue crystals. The teacher praised us. But Ivy's smile was strained, as if she were wearing a mask. 8, after school, I was organizing my notes in the empty classroom when I heard familiar footsteps outside the door. Mom, what are you doing here? Came Ivy's voice. Just came to see you. Regina's gentle tone made my chest feel tight. Are you settling in at the new school? It's fine. It's just, Ivy's voice trailed off. That Phoenix is so annoying. She always sees right through my plans. Regina's voice turned icy in an instant. How many times have I told you not to make your moves so obvious? That girl is no fool, but she's just a poor student. Listen, Regina lowered her voice. The principal has done as I asked. She won't be getting any special opportunities. You just need to keep your composure and not give anyone a reason to talk. Only when the footsteps faded into the distance did I unclench my fist, the nails having left deep crescent-shaped marks in my palm. So that's how it is. Regina has even blocked my path after winning the scholarship. A month later, the school announced its annual talent show, with the grand prize being a Shin-sponsored art tour of Paris. When the sign-up sheets were handed out, Ivy walked right up to my desk in front of everyone. "Phoenix, are you signing up?" she asked with an innocent smile. "I hear you're quite the singer." The whole class erupted in whispers. No one had ever heard me sing. This was clearly a trap. I looked up and met her gaze. "Yes, I am. Piano solo." Ivy's pupils contracted sharply. She had no idea I could play the piano. On the day of the competition, the auditorium was packed. Ivy's classical dance performance was the grand finale. Earning a thunderous ovation, I performed before her, playing Chopin's Revolutionary Etude. As the final note faded, the hall fell silent for a few seconds before erupting into thunderous applause. I saw Regina on the judges' panel with a dark expression, while Ivy stood backstage, a venomous glint in her eyes. During the scoring announcement, the host declared, "And the winner is Student Ivy." The hall erupted in applause once more. Ivy gracefully ascended the stage to accept the award, and as she passed me, she whispered, "The poor should know their place." I stood up and walked straight to the judges' table. "I object to the result," I said. The auditorium fell silent instantly. The principal cleared his throat awkwardly. "Arthur, the judge's decision is final." "Is that so?" I produced my phone. "Then perhaps you'd care to explain this recording." A clear conversation came from the phone. "Rest assured, madam, the winner has already been predetermined to be Miss Ivy. Thank you for your hard work, Judge Zhang. The payment will be transferred to your account on time." The entire audience erupted in an uproar. Ivy turned deathly pale, while Regina shot to her feet. Fabricating a recording is a serious breach of conduct, whether it's fabricated or not. A quick look at Judge Zhang's bank statements will tell us. I looked Regina straight in the eye. Or perhaps Mrs. Shin dares to publicly guarantee that nothing of the sort happened. The air in the auditorium seemed to freeze solid. For the first time, a crack appeared in Regina's perfectly composed facade. Just then, Ivy suddenly burst into sobs. "Phoenix, I know you're jealous that my family is better off than yours, but why would you set me up like this?" She turned to the audience, her eyes brimming with tears. "That recording, it was just me and the judge discussing a charity project." The situation reversed in an instant. Whispers broke out again, but this time, they were all directed at me. How utterly vicious. The pride of the poor is truly a fearsome thing. Poor Ivy. Seizing the moment, the principal announced, "Student Phoenix has slandered the judges and will receive a formal demerit." The competition results stand. As the crowd dispersed, I stood there, watching Ivy and Regina being fawned over by their admirers. The latter shot me a triumphant look, as if to say, "See, this is the difference between us." Stepping out of the auditorium, light drizzle began to fall. I didn't open my umbrella, letting the rain soak my face. "I lost this round, but the war has only just begun." Ivy, "Regina, did you really think that would be enough to take me down? In my past life, I clawed my way from the slums to the gates of the Shin family. In this life, I will make you watch as I take everything you hold dear." Piece by piece, the rain grew heavier, yet a cold smirk curled at the corner of my mouth. After all, the most interesting part of this game was just beginning. A week after the campus incident had blown over, I slipped into the city library under the pretense of attending a tutoring session. The third floor housed bound volumes of newspapers from the past 30 years. "Can I help you?" The archivist was a kindly old woman. "I'd like to see the local newspapers from 20 years ago, especially any coverage of the Shin group." The old woman led me to a dusty shelf. "It's all here, dear." I quickly found what I was looking for. The report on Regina's wedding. In the photo, she was young and beautiful, her arm linked with that of a handsome man. My fingers trembled slightly. This man, my biological father Arthur, was already gravely ill and on his deathbed when I saw him in my previous life. He passed away 3 months later, but what caught my attention was another woman in the corner of the photo. She stood in the shadows, almost cropped out of the frame. Yet I recognized those eyes. They were the spitting image of my own. "May I ask who this is?" I inquired, pointing at the blurry figure as I asked the curator. The elderly lady put on her reading glasses and took a look. "Oh, that's Regina's close friend Serene," I heard later. "Well, it's all just old, sordid gossip now." My heart raced. "Could you tell me more?" "I don't know the specifics. I just remember Serene suddenly went abroad later. Some said it was because of Arthur." The old woman trailed off. A child shouldn't ask about such things. As I left the library, my mind was racing. Serene, Ivy, this is no coincidence. That night, I devised a risky plan to infiltrate the Shin family villa. Over the weekend, I tailed Ivy on her shopping trip. While she was trying on clothes in a luxury boutique, I slipped a pre-prepared tracking device into her shopping bag. At 8 in the evening, my phone's map showed she had returned to the Shin villa. I changed into black athletic wear, pulled on a baseball cap, and rode my second-hand bicycle to the affluent neighborhood where the Shin residence was located. There's a blind spot in the security camera coverage on the back wall of the villa. I had noticed it in my past life when I came to claim my family. 10. Scaling the wall was easier than I'd imagined. I crouched in the garden bushes, watching the activity inside the villa. The first floor was brightly lit, and the faint sounds of Regina and Ivy's conversation and laughter could be heard. On the second floor, only the room on the far right had its light on. That was Regina's study, where in a past life she had refused to acknowledge me. After the lights went out, I used a wire to pry open the study window and slipped inside with ease. Moonlight streamed in through the floor-to-ceiling window, casting a silvery glow over the room. I went straight for the mahogany desk and tried the drawers. They were locked, but a memory from a past life told me the key was in a hidden compartment of Regina's nightstand. Too risky. I turned my attention to the bookshelf instead, finding a hidden compartment behind a row of hardcover books. Inside lay a leather-bound journal. The beam of my flashlight fell upon the yellowed pages. On the most recent one, it read, "She's back, like a nightmare from my past life, that bitch's daughter. Her eyes are the spitting image of her father's. Every time I see them, it turns my stomach. At least Ivy is enrolled at St. John's now. This time, I must make sure she stays far away from Cedric." I flipped to the beginning of the diary, and the more I read, the more horrified I became. Today in the delivery room, I was reborn. Heaven has given me a chance to right my wrongs. That child the nurse brought in, Serene and Arthur's bastard daughter. This time, I will not let her tarnish the Shin family name. Ivy is 5 years old now, the perfect picture of my elegance. As for that little bastard, the surveillance photos I had taken show her growing up in the slums, looking like a filthy little rat. She actually got into St. John's. But it doesn't matter. The headmaster has already taken my money. Ivy will be the only star. My hands began to tremble. Not only has Regina been reborn, but she also knows my every move. What's even more terrifying is that Ivy is actually my biological father's illegitimate child with that woman. Serene denied her husband's love. Regina projected her twisted affections onto her rival's daughter. Suddenly, footsteps echoed from downstairs. I quickly returned the diary to its place and hid behind the curtains. The study door swung open, and Regina walked in. She went straight to the bookshelf, retrieved the diary, flipped to the latest page, and added a few lines. I held my breath, not daring to move until she was out of sight. As I climbed out the window, I accidentally knocked over a flower pot. "Who's there?" The beam from the security guard's flashlight swept across the area. I scrambled over the wall to escape, but the barbed wire tore a deep gash in my right leg. I went home and tended to my wounds through the pain, the contents of the diary swirling in my mind. Regina, to get back at your husband's infidelity, you'd rather raise your rival's daughter just to torment your own flesh and blood. Fine. In this lifetime, I'll make sure you reap what you've sown. My leg injury forced me to take 3 days off. On the day I returned to school, the homeroom teacher announced there was a new student. "This is Cedric, a new transfer student from the capital." Hearing that name, the pen in my hand clattered to the floor. The boyfriend from my past life, the one who ultimately chose to believe Ivy, had appeared 3 years early. 11. Cedric stood at the podium, the sunlight gilding his tall, straight frame with a golden edge. He gave a brief self-introduction, his gaze sweeping across the classroom and pausing slightly when it landed on me. "Cedric, you can sit here for now," the homeroom teacher said, scanning the room. "Teacher, I have an empty seat here." Ivy's sweet voice rang out, and sure enough, there was a vacant spot beside her. Cedric gave a polite nod and made his way to that seat. As he passed by me, a familiar scent of sandalwood drifted through the air. During class, I could feel a gaze fixed on my back. After class, I quickly gathered my books to leave, only to be stopped. "Hello, I'm Cedric." He stood by my desk, a gentle smile on his lips. "Have we met somewhere before?" Ivy immediately squeezed her way over. "Cedric, the dean asked me to take you to get your uniform." Cedric glanced at her, then turned back to me. "What's your name?" "Phoenix." I looked down, avoiding his gaze. "Sorry, I'm in a hurry." I walked quickly out of the classroom, my heart pounding. When I first met Cedric in my past life, he had said the exact same thing. It felt like history was repeating itself, but this time, I wouldn't make the same mistake. In the days that followed, I made a conscious effort to avoid Cedric, but he kept finding excuses to approach me, borrowing notes, asking about homework, even bumping into me at the library. "Why are you always avoiding me?" He stopped me at the school gate one day after class. "We don't have anything in common." I looked him straight in the eye. "You should be friends with Ivy. You two are from the same world." Cedric frowned. "I don't understand." "Phoenix," a familiar voice cut him off. Sunny ran down from a luxury car. "It really is you." My eyes widened. 5 years had passed, and she had grown even more beautiful. The designer clothes she wore couldn't hide the warmth in her eyes. Sunny, how did you? My dad got transferred back, so I transferred schools too. She grabbed my hand excitedly, then looked warily at Cedric. And who's this? Cedric. His gaze shifted between me and Sunny. You two know each other. We're best friends. Sunny linked her arm with mine. Phoenix, I've been looking for you everywhere. Looking at Sunny's sincere smile, a wave of warmth washed over me. In my past life, I died alone. In this one, at least I still have her. Sunny, Ivy's voice came from behind, laced with clear shock. You two know each other. Sunny gave a cool nod. We're old friends, she said, then turned to me. Phoenix, my father sent a car. Shall we go together? Under Ivy's disbelieving gaze, I got into the Song family's luxury car. In the rearview mirror, I saw Cedric's thoughtful expression and Ivy's contorted face. Sunny's return completely derailed Ivy's plans. As the daughter of a school board member, Sunny held a status at school that even surpassed Ivy's. What infuriated her even more was how openly Sunny flaunted our friendship. Phoenix, my birthday party is next week. You absolutely have to come, Sunny announced loudly in the cafeteria one day during lunch break. The classmates around me all looked astonished. The people at Ivy's table looked even more displeased. I might. No refusals. Sunny pressed a gilt-edged invitation into my hand. Dad specifically said to invite you. The invitation read, the song group Eris's 18th birthday gala. In my past life, this party was the stage where Ivy shone brilliantly, while I wasn't even invited. Thank you, I said, accepting the invitation, catching a glimpse of Ivy storming off in my peripheral vision. 12. After school, I was coincidentally informed by the student council that I needed to stay behind to organize files in the empty student council office. I quickly realized the door was locked from the outside. It started raining outside. Looks like someone wanted me to miss the last bus. I let out a cold laugh, took out my phone, and dialed Sunny's number. 10 minutes later, the Song family car pulled up in front of the academic building. Ivy is going too far, Sunny said angrily from the back seat. Phoenix, you need to be careful. It's fine, I said, watching the curtain of rain outside the window. She can't hurt me. On the day of the debutante ball, I arrived at the Song family villa wearing the sky blue gown Sunny had given me. This dress had a previous life where Ivy accidentally spilled red wine on it, making me the laughingstock. Phoenix, Sunny rushed over and hugged me. You look absolutely stunning, the guests whispered among themselves, clearly taken aback by my arrival. In the crowd, I spotted Cedric in a crisp suit, his gaze fixed intently on me. Phoenix, a familiar voice froze me in my tracks. Regina stood a short distance away, her eyes wide with shock. What are you doing here? Hello, Auntie, I said with a polite nod. I'm a friend of Sunny's. Regina's expression darkened instantly. Just then, Ivy walked over, dressed in a white gown like a pure angel. Mom, let's go see Uncle Song, she said, linking arms with Regina and shooting me a defiant look. As the party reached its peak, it was time for Sunny to blow out the candles and make a wish. Ivy, in a show of helpfulness, was carrying the cake. As she passed by me, she suddenly stumbled, sending the cake flying in my direction. I was ready for it and sidestepped just in time. The cake smashed onto her own white dress, splattering cream all over her. Ah, she screamed. The guests erupted in an uproar. Sunny looked at her coldly. Ivy, do be careful. Regina hurried over to shield Ivy. Ivy didn't mean to do that. Oh, really? I said softly. Then what about this? I took my phone out of my clutch and played a video. Ivy was in the student council's storage room, practicing her slip and fall routine while muttering to herself. This time, I'll make sure that bitch makes a fool of herself. I snuck into the school and filmed it last night. In my past life, she used this exact trick to ruin my gown. This time, I'm giving her a taste of her own medicine. Regina's face turned ashen. Fabricating a video is illegal, whether it's fabricated or not. A technical expert can easily verify that, I replied calmly. An awkward silence fell over the scene. Just then, Cedric suddenly walked up to me. I can vouch for the video's authenticity, he said. I happened to see Arthur go to the student council office last night to retrieve a book he'd forgotten. He was lying, but why would he help me? The party ended on a sour note. As I was leaving, Regina whispered in my ear, you think you've won? The game has only just begun. 13. The day my university acceptance letter arrived, I officially moved out of the Sue family home. With my full scholarship and savings from part-time jobs, I rented a small apartment near campus. Phoenix, are you really not considering moving in with me? Sunny asked, her voice tinged with disappointment. I need my independence, I said with a smile, giving her a hug, but we'll see each other all the time. I chose the business school, and Ivy, coincidentally, ended up at the same university, studying in the art department. Cedric, however, went to a prestigious university abroad. Before he left, he came to see me, wait for me. I didn't respond. In this life, love isn't part of my plan. University life was busy and fulfilling, drawing on memories from my past life, I began developing a unique perfume. In my past life, the Shin Group was built on the perfume business. I know those formulas by heart. This is called Nirvana, I said, showing Sunny the sample in our dorm. Top notes of bergamot and blackcurrant, heart notes of rose and jasmine, and base notes of sandalwood and amber. Sunny gave it a spritz, her eyes widening in delight. It's incredible. It feels like a rebirth. That's exactly the idea, I said with a smile. In my sophomore year, I officially registered the company and launched the Nirvana perfume line. Thanks to its unique formula and promotion through Sunny's social circle, the product quickly became a hit. Phoenix, look at this. Sunny burst into my studio one day, waving a fashion magazine. Best new fragrance of the year, Nirvana. I took the magazine and saw my own brand prominently featured at the top of the list. Just then, the phone rang. It was an unknown number. Miss Phoenix, this is Business Weekly. We'd like to interview you about. I hung up the phone and let out a long sigh of relief. The first step was a success. However, the good times didn't last. A month later, a perfume called Rebirth suddenly appeared on the market. Its formula was strikingly similar to Nirvana, yet it was priced at half the cost. It's a new product from the Sue Group, Sunny said angrily. Ivy must have stolen your formula. I calmly examined the sample. It's not exactly the same. They altered the ratio of 2 ingredients, but the core formula is definitely Nirvana. Let's sue them. Not so fast, I said with a smile. I patented it long ago, and I left a little trap in the formula. 2 weeks later, news reports revealed that the Phoenix perfume had caused allergic reactions in numerous people due to its ingredients, and the Sue Group was facing a class action lawsuit. My patent lawyer promptly sent a cease and desist letter. Phoenix, Ivy cornered me in the hallway after class one day, her eyes blazing with fury. You set me up. Set you up. I raised an eyebrow. You're the one who stole the formula. I was merely protecting my intellectual property. You think you've won, she hissed, lowering her voice. Don't forget, my mother knows everything about you. Oh, really? I chuckled softly. Then why don't you go ask her what really happened in the delivery room the year you were born? Ivy's face instantly drained of color. She clearly had no idea about the baby swap. Ivy's retaliation was swift and brutal. A week later, I was involved in a freak car accident. The driver fled the scene, and I was rushed to the hospital with multiple fractures and internal bleeding. The prognosis is not good. In my dazed state, I heard the doctor say those words, 14 for 3 days and 3 nights. I hovered between life and death. No one came to see me, no one but Sunny. In the early hours of the 4th day, I was finally out of danger, only to hear the sound of a familiar argument outside my hospital room. Mom, why save her? Wouldn't it be better if she just died? It was Ivy's voice. Shut up. Regina's voice was unusually sharp. If she dies now, what will the media say? Founder's biological daughter of the Shin Group dies under mysterious circumstances. We'll be the prime suspects. But, no buts. I've already contacted the best doctors. She has to live, at least until we secure control of her company. As the footsteps faded away, I forced my eyes open with difficulty, only to find Cedric sitting by the hospital bed. Dark circles heavy under his eyes. What are you doing here? My voice came out hoarse and raspy. Sunny told me. He took my hand. I flew back overnight from abroad. It's not worth it. It was worth it. His gaze was unwavering. Phoenix, in both lifetimes, I have only ever loved you. I stared at him in shock. What did you say? I was reborn too. He gave a bitter smile. In my past life, I made a grave mistake by believing Ivy's lies. In this life, I swear to protect you. The sheer amount of information was overwhelming, and my mind struggled to process it. Cedric was a reincarnator too. No wonder he showed up early. No wonder he was always helping me. I don't need protection. I finally withdrew my hand. Love is a luxury to me, not a necessity. A flicker of pain crossed Cedric's eyes, but his expression soon turned resolute again. I know. I'll wait for you, no matter how long it takes. After being discharged from the hospital, I pretended to have amnesia, claiming to have no memory at all of the car accident. Regina breathed a sigh of relief and offered her faint concern. Ivy remained skeptical, probing me from time to time. Meanwhile, I secretly accelerated the final steps of my revenge plan. At the 3rd anniversary gala for the Nirvana perfume brand, I invited celebrities and media from all walks of life. Regina and Ivy were also on the guest list. I made sure Sunny personally delivered their invitations to ensure they couldn't refuse. The venue was exquisitely decorated. The brand's development history was playing on the large screen. I was delivering a speech on stage when Regina and her mother arrived in their finest attire. Today, in addition to celebrating the success of Nirvana, I have an important announcement to make. I looked toward Regina in the audience, and a sudden sense of foreboding came over her. The screen cut to a surveillance video from 20 years ago. In a delivery room, a conscious Regina watched as a nurse swapped The wristbands of 2 newborns, 15. The room erupted in an uproar. Regina shot to her feet. This is a fake. The screen then cut to evidence of Ivy's repeated attempts to frame me, footage of her tampering with equipment in the school lab, an audio recording of a financial transaction with the hit-and-run driver, security camera video of her stealing the perfume formula, and the cruelest irony of all. I raised my voice. Is that you, Miss Ivy? The slum girl you've always despised is actually Ms. Regina's biological daughter, while you are the child of her romantic rival. Ivy turned deathly pale, while Regina screamed hysterically, turn it off now. The press photographers went into a frenzy, snapping pictures. I continued, because her husband fell in love with her best friend Serene. Ms. Regina transferred her twisted affection onto her rival's daughter. While subjecting her own flesh and blood to endless torment, chaos erupted in the venue. Regina suddenly rushed onto the stage and grabbed my collar, shouting, "You bitch, I should have strangled you when I had the chance." Her deranged outburst was broadcast live. As security dragged her away, she was still screaming, "Ivy is my real daughter. That horse child doesn't deserve to live." Ivy tried to slip away in the chaos, but was stopped by police at the door. After the press conference, the Shin Group scandal made headlines across all major media outlets. Regina suffered a complete mental breakdown and was admitted to a sanatorium. Ivy, meanwhile, was sentenced to prison on multiple charges. As for me, sales of the Nirvana perfume have increased tenfold. I officially took over the Shin Group and merged its operations with my own company. Congratulations, Cedric said, raising his glass to me at the celebration banquet. Thank you. I clinked my glass with his, but the story isn't over yet. Oh. I looked out at the night sky. I need to find Serene, my birth mother. Cedric took my hand. I'll go with you. This time, I didn't refuse. 3 years later, I found Serene in a small town in the south of France. She ran a little flower shop and lived a quiet life. Phoenix, she recognized me the moment she saw me, tears streaming down her face. I've been looking for you for 20 years. It turned out that Regina had set her up back then, forcing her to flee far from home. She had always believed I was raised by the Shin family, and only learned the truth when she saw the news. You don't hate me? She asked timidly. Why would I hate you? I embraced the frail woman. You were never the one at fault. 16, I brought Serene back to my home country and arranged for her to live next door to me. She and Sunny hit it off immediately, and they often spend time together arranging flowers and drinking tea. As for Ivy, she attempted suicide in prison and was diagnosed with borderline personality disorder. Meanwhile, Regina spends her days in the sanatorium muttering to herself, calling out Ivy's name. Cedric became my business partner and the closest person in my life. While I still hadn't accepted his feelings, I no longer pushed him away. I have all the patience in the world, he would often say. One early morning, I stood in the top floor office of the Shin Group building, overlooking the city skyline. In my past life, I fell from this very place. In this life, I stand at the summit. My phone rang. It was Sunny. Phoenix, check the news now. I turned on the TV and saw breaking news. Ivy, while out on medical parole, crashed her car into the police station gates during a drunk driving incident. Police discovered further evidence of her crimes on her phone. I turned off the TV and gazed out the window at the brilliant sunshine. What goes around comes around, and my new life is just beginning. The end. Story 2. My mother had a habit of airing my private matters everywhere. It wasn't until after her death that I realized this was her people-pleasing personality at play. After my hemorrhoid surgery, she went around the neighborhood gossiping, even vividly describing how I looked undressed post-operation. Furious, I confronted her about disrespecting my privacy. She brushed it off, saying, "It's just a bit of harmless gossip. Why are you making such a big deal out of it?" Later, I was subjected to perverted humiliation because of this incident and jumped into the river with bitter resentment. Reborn, I returned to the day my mother spread my private matters. Little did she know, this time I would make her personally taste the bitter consequences of having her privacy exposed. Coming home from work, I overheard my mother talking mysteriously with the neighbors. My daughter has hemorrhoids on her butt. Good Lord, I wasn't even that grossed out when I gave birth to her. She wasn't even wearing pants during the surgery. I ask you, how's an unmarried young woman supposed to find a husband after some male doctor has seen her bare bottom? A ringing filled my ears as I stared at my mother's moving lips. Unable to believe what I was hearing, struggling to maintain my composure, I managed to call out, "Mom." She froze in terror, rooted to the spot and refusing to meet my eyes. The neighbors, who'd been eagerly listening to the juicy details, scurried away with excuses about cooking dinner when they saw me return. I stormed ahead in stony silence while Mom trailed behind, keeping her distance. The moment we got home, she bolted to the kitchen, clattering pots and pans to pretend she couldn't hear me. I slammed the kitchen door open. Mom, I specifically told you to stop sharing my private matters. Why do you never listen? Mom threw down the rice ladle, stiffened her neck, and stomped her foot in a huff. Yo-yo, I was just making small talk. Why are you making such a big deal? I'm your mother. There isn't a single part of your body I haven't seen. Great, there she goes again with that same old line. But I've grown up now. I'm not a child anymore. My chest heaved with heavy breaths. Is she really my biological mother? I must be a child she picked up somewhere. No real mother would use her own daughter's business as gossip material. Crack. Mom smashed a bowl on the floor, sending shards flying everywhere. Yo-yo, now that you've grown wings, you look down on me. She sobbed tearfully and ran off to call my dad and tattle on me. I watched coldly as she twisted the truth with silver-tongued eloquence over the phone. After hanging up, my mother turned to me with a smug look. I stared at her as if she were a fool and said, Mom, have you forgotten why Dad's been living at the factory instead of coming home? Her face froze, and she deflated like a punctured balloon. I picked up my phone to call my dad and noticed several people frantically tagging me in the neighborhood group chat. When I opened it, I was absolutely furious. They were asking where I had my hemorrhoid surgery and inquiring about the details of the procedure. My mom was all hyped up, firing off over a dozen voice messages in a row, the things I had just reminded her about went in one ear and out the other. I immediately sent a voice message in the group. Hey, Mom, the ultrasound appointment you made only has male doctors available. You're a married woman who's had children. What are you so worried about? 2 minutes later, I finally typed out a message in the group chat. Sorry everyone, wrong chat. My mom saw my message after coming out of the kitchen and angrily demanded I delete it, accusing me of exposing her privacy. I shrugged. It's just some harmless gossip. Why are you being so touchy? Chapter 2. In my past life, it wasn't until she caused my death that I realized my mother had a people-pleasing personality. She struggled with social interactions and often couldn't find openings in conversations. Once, she unintentionally shared an embarrassing story about me, which made everyone burst into laughter. It was like my mother had struck gold. From that day on, she kept using her own child's private matters as entertainment for others. Over time, people who knew her would point and whisper when she appeared, Look, there goes that fool who airs her own daughter's dirty laundry in public. Tell me she's not mentally ill. Turns out my mom's nickname was the Big Fool. When I told her, she didn't believe me and instead accused me of being jealous of her popularity, unlike me who keeps to myself. Ever since I can remember, she's loved sharing my private matters in front of others, and then she'd team up with them to comment on it. In 5th grade, when I got my first period, the teacher called her to bring me a clean pair of pants right away. I hid in the restroom, anxiously waiting for her to arrive, but even after school ended, there was still no sign of my mom. I curled up in the corner, afraid my classmates might see me. The teacher took pity on me, went out to buy a pair, and even made a special trip to bike me home. I later found out that after my mom got the call, she did grab the pants, but an hour later she still hadn't made it past the neighborhood gate. She told everyone she ran into that I'd gotten my period, blaming it on me eating too much and developing early, so much so that when I got back to the neighborhood that day, neighbors who knew me started pointing and whispering with ill intent. They crowded around me, all smirks and giggles, and started tugging at my clothes. My teacher shielded me tightly behind her, her eyes blazing with anger. To this day, I can't forget the despair of that moment. I became guarded around my mother and stopped sharing anything with her. I thought this would protect my privacy, but then my mother started spying on me. She wouldn't let me close my bedroom door at night, but I'm older now and need my own space. My mom went as far as breaking the lock and stood there with her hands on her hips, acting all high and mighty. Nothing escaped her eagle eyes. Not the notes that fell in the room, nor the indentations left on paper from pressing too hard while writing. While I was at school, my mom would dig out my hidden diary, eagerly show it to guests, and laugh while making comments. She'd sneak it back before I returned home, pretending she knew nothing about it. Back in 9th grade, I had a secret crush on a boy and poured my admiration for him into my diary. My mother found out and announced it to everyone at the family dinner as a hilarious anecdote. My face turned deathly pale, and my fingertips trembled uncontrollably. She had actually been secretly reading my diary all along. Eventually, the boy's family found out. His mother stormed into my classroom, dragged me out in front of everyone, and called me shameless. She said a young girl like me was already acting like a seductress and that my grades must be terrible. They finally shut up when the homeroom teacher presented my report card with the highest grades in the year. I will never forget that day, being surrounded, mocked, and humiliated. I stood on the rooftop of the teaching building, the cold wind blowing over the tears on my cheeks, chilling to the bone. If I jump, all this pain will end, won't it? The moment I stepped forward with my left foot, my homeroom teacher grabbed me from behind and pulled me down. I sobbed in her arms as she gently stroked my head, her own tears falling with mine. I begged my homeroom teacher not to tell my mother, knowing my family situation. She just sighed. Years later, I finally mustered the courage to ask my mom, when you snooped through my diary and spread the word about my crush on that boy, do you have any idea how much that hurt me? My mom replied dismissively, I knew you almost jumped off the building that day. If you had the guts, you would have done it. I knew you didn't have the nerve. You get all dramatic over a few critical words. Sigh, I spoiled you too much. You're just too fragile. I pressed my palm against my chest, feeling as if someone were choking me, my heart pounding wildly. So she had known all along. And even then, she hadn't given it a second thought. From that point on, I rarely spoke at home. Mom complained to Dad, but he stood up for me, warning her to back off or he'd file for divorce. Chapter 3. My mother plopped down on the floor, wailing without tears as she cursed my father for being heartless. When her tears ran dry, she stormed outside to air her grievances about my father to the neighbors, carrying on like a bitter, scorned woman. To avoid her, my father often took night shifts and tried his best to stay away from home. I swore to myself that when I grew up, I'd buy a big house with my own money, a home for just my dad and me. I thought the surgery would soon fade from everyone's memory, but what happened next severed the last thread of our mother-daughter bond. I ended up back at the hospital because the wound inflammation had led to a gynecological infection. When I got home, my mother stared at me with a stony face, scrutinizing what I was holding with lightning speed. She rummaged through the bag, examining each medication one by one. Yo-yo, have you done something shameful? I didn't want to engage with her, so I completely ignored her, but my mom immediately exploded. Good girls don't get gynecological diseases. You must have slept with a man. I've had it up to here. Mom, what kind of mother slanders her own daughter like this? Are you even my real mother? She snatched my medical record and shrieked, I'm telling Jason, let's see how long you keep up this defiant act. Jason is my boyfriend. We've been dating for 6 months, and I've only brought him home once. That one time was all it took for my mom to add him on WeChat. Jason didn't think much of it, assuming my mom would just occasionally check in. Little did he know she'd start sending him my private photos every few days. When I bought some new underwear, she inspected them back and forth dozens of times before sending the pictures to Jason. With Yo-Yo's curvy figure, there's no way she'd buy such tiny underwear herself. Some other man must have given them to her. She even sent a long voice message teaching my boyfriend how to invade my privacy without getting caught. Yo-yo, what parent doesn't love their child? There must be a reason your aunt said those things about you. My mother sounded almost gleeful as she said my figure was terrible, no curves at all, and that no man would ever be interested in someone like me. That's just how she is, always finding fault with me. Jason held me tight, his expression serious as he said, Auntie, I love Yo-Yo and accept her flaws. I trust Yo-Yo. She would never do the things you're accusing her of. Jason spoke with deliberate pauses, leaving my mother flushed with embarrassment. In my previous life, Jason had trusted me completely, but he couldn't withstand my mother's constant meddling. Over time, we eventually broke up after being reborn. The first thing I did was come clean to Jason about my family situation. I started house hunting and decided to move out of my family home, but before I could move, something happened to me. On Friday evening, as I was nearing home after work, I sensed a man following close behind me. Too scared to look back, I quietly switched my phone to silent mode and pressed the emergency contact button. As I reached the unavoidable intersection, the streetlight flickered out. I quickened my pace, but a man still ambushed me from behind. I cried out in terror, "Who are you? What do you want?" The man gave a sinister grin and reached up to touch my face. "So you're Yo-Yo. I've been watching you for days. You finally showed up, but I don't know you." The man stopped responding. His large hand covered my mouth and nose while the other pinned me against the wall, groping beneath my clothes. After being single for so long, finally getting a woman comes easy. His foul breath hit my face as he spoke. My stomach churned violently, and I vomited all over the floor, yet he still refused to let go. #chapter. For I struggled with all my might, but he stood firm like an immovable wall. The sound of police sirens pierced the air. The man panicked, but it was too late to escape. My mother rushed to the police station and said I was lucky not to have been assaulted. I stared into her eyes, searching for answers. My mother turned away guiltily, unable to meet my eyes. She knew exactly what she'd done. If she hadn't broadcast my hemorrhoid surgery and gynecological issues everywhere, insinuating I was promiscuous, these scumbags would never have targeted me. In my past life, the same creep tormented me. I begged my mother for help, but instead of calling the police, she told everyone we knew that I'd been raped. Overwhelmed by despair, I threw myself into the river. This time, I hired a bodyguard in advance, keeping him close in the shadows for protection. At the police station, I specifically told my mom not to breathe a word about what happened today. It could ruin my reputation, with the officers watching. My mother nodded anxiously again and again. I was pretty shaken up, but Jason stayed by my side the whole time. When I woke up the next day, he was dozing peacefully on the sofa. When I went to the bathroom, I was surprised to find the living room packed with people. Neighbors and relatives had all shown up. When they saw me come out, they each stepped forward to comfort me. Yo-yo, your mom said you were almost assaulted yesterday. I just came to check on you. Please don't do anything rash. Yo-yo. Don't blame your mom for talking about it. She only wants what's best for you. We noticed she wasn't out today, so we came by to see how you're doing. Sweetheart, don't be foolish. Don't tell your boyfriend about this, or he might break up with you. My face was deathly pale as I swayed unsteadily on my feet. The moment Jason emerged from the bedroom, everyone fell silent. After they left, I collapsed onto the couch and screamed hoarsely at my mother, demanding to know why she'd done it. My mother tried to pretend she hadn't heard me, just like she always did. My father stood on the balcony smoking one cigarette after another, looking as if he'd aged a decade overnight. Fiona, let's get a divorce. My mother froze for 2 seconds, then started pounding my father's head with both fists like a rabid dog. Enough, Mom. Are you trying to drive me down the same path as my sister? The air went still for a moment, while thunder rumbled outside. My sister's name is Nyx, and it's a taboo subject in our family. The year I started middle school, she decided to move abroad. Over a decade has passed, and she hasn't called home once. My mother drove her away. My sister was an outstanding student and got into a top university in China. I still vividly remember how she urged me before starting college to study hard and get into a university far from home, so we could break free from our mother. We naively thought that putting distance between us and our mother would keep her from exposing our private lives. When my sister didn't come home for the new year, our mother went around telling everyone she'd been abandoned. Even the vegetable vendor a kilometer away heard about my sister's bad reputation. She secretly went to see her sister, and in the dormitory, she overheard her roommate say that her sister had gone to see a doctor for irregular periods. My mom blurted out without thinking, "Is Nyx pregnant?" I knew there was a reason she didn't come home for the new year. Before even understanding the situation, she started wailing in all the WeChat groups, calling my sister a slut who was fooling around with some random guy. Her roommate was so frightened that she quickly tried to explain, but my mom wouldn't listen at all. She's as stubborn as a steel rod, twists the truth, and only believes the reality her mind has fabricated. The incident blew up and became known throughout the entire school. My once cheerful and lively sister fell into severe depression and nearly took her own life. Later, one of my sister's close friends passed a letter to me. In her letter, my sister told me she's moving abroad and turning her back on this family, and now I'm following in her footsteps. I'm done with this household too. I moved out of the family home. My mother stood blocking the doorway, her eyes brimming with tears. Yo-yo, are you abandoning me too? I didn't look back at her. After saying goodbye to my father, I dragged my heavy suitcase and left. Chapter 5. I enjoyed a period of peaceful days, no longer worrying about my privacy being violated. Jason will come see me right after work. I once asked him why he chose to stay with someone from such a troubled family. With a solemn expression, he told me about a dream. To my astonishment, the dream's content perfectly mirrored my experiences from a past life. Yo-yo, I swear I'll protect you with everything I have in this lifetime. Wait, is Jason a reincarnated soul too? Whatever. As long as I get to be with the one I love in this life, nothing else matters. My mom has called me dozens more times, and I've ignored every single call. Mom, I gave you a chance. At the police station, I thought the officer's warning would make you realize the harm of spreading private information and that you'd finally stop, but you only behaved for a few days before going back to your old ways. I rented an apartment far from home and only shared the address with Dad. That very night, my family group chat, neighborhood chat, even the grocery shopping chat, everyone knew I'd moved out. All my aunts and relatives were at ing me in the group chat, saying I was being unreasonable. They insisted that's just how my mom is and I shouldn't have lost my temper. I immediately left all the group chats and blocked everyone who didn't matter. I'm really enjoying the peace and quiet now. I bet my sister would be proud if she could see how brave I've been. On Friday, I needed the household register, but when I called my dad, he was away on a business trip. I went back home while my mom was out. Just as I stepped out of the neighborhood gate, I saw my mom pulling my boss's sleeve and badmouthing me. You have no idea, Yo-Yo is so greedy and lazy at home, and she never listens. How dare your company hire such an employee? You should fire her as soon as possible. My boss stared at my mom as if she were an idiot, oblivious to my discomfort. My mother kept divulging personal details about my private life. My boss asked her, "How do you know all this so well?" My mother said smugly, "Heh, I memorized her login and computer passwords. I found out her little secrets when she wasn't paying attention. Yo-Yo isn't a good girl at all. She's just using your company as a stepping stone and constantly talks about quitting at home. The leader's face darkened as he finally lost patience, shaking off my mother's sleeve and hurrying away as if afraid of catching her bad luck. Fiona, my mother spun around, her beaming face instantly contorted with panic. Mom, I haven't had the chance to tell you yet. I've already left my previous job, so complaining about me to the leadership is pointless. I turned to leave, and she hastily asked for my current company's address, as if I'd ever tell her. My former boss lived right next to our neighborhood. After moving out, I had a feeling my mom would probably badmouth me to him. I'd already lined up a new job and hadn't even told my dad. 2 weeks later, when I returned from a business trip, I found the house completely ransacked. I immediately checked the security footage. We'd been burglarized, but the surveillance revealed it wasn't a burglar at all. It was my mother. Chapter 6. Knowing neither my dad nor Jason would give her my address, my mother started staking out Jason's workplace every day. She discreetly followed him to finally track me down. When the neighborhood security guard stopped her, she pulled out a thick stack of family photos to prove who she was. My mom knew I always keep a spare key under the doormat, so she just waltzed right into my home. She rummaged through the house looking for any trace of me, and eventually found the plans for my engagement party tucked under the coffee table. My father's name was clearly listed among the wedding guests, but hers was nowhere to be found. My mother stood frozen in place, utterly crestfallen as if struck by lightning. Before leaving, she took the engagement party guest list with her. Jason once asked me if it was inappropriate not to inform my mother about such a significant event as our engagement. I know my mother all too well. She never misses a chance to put me down in situations like this. Why would I willingly make myself a target? We only had one table at the engagement dinner, with just my dad and my aunt's family from our side. Though small, their blessings for me were truly heartfelt. Before the banquet even began, my mother stormed in with my uncle's family in tow, radiating hostility. Yo-Yo, have you no shame? How could you not tell me about something as important as your engagement? My father stood up and tried to pull her aside, whispering that this day was important to me. No matter how unreasonable she was being, she needed to consider the situation. My mother turned away, ignoring my father completely. She never had any respect for my kind-hearted father. Letting out a contemptuous snort, my mother strode to the head of the table and plopped down unceremoniously. She bluntly asked Jason's parents, "Do you know about Yo-Yo's secret?" "Let me tell you, she was recently harassed by some pervert, came home sobbing and carrying on about how she'd been violated. Lucky for her she ran into a decent family like yours. That little temptress would never have found a husband otherwise." A dead silence fell over everyone in the room. My father and my aunt's family all turned pale in an instant. "Fiona, shut your mouth." My father's voice was laced with anger, yet restrained beneath the surface. My aunt sidled up to me with feigned concern. "Yo-Yo, you're in the wrong here. What's the big deal if your mother scolds you? It's not like we don't know about your little secrets," my scheming uncle chimed in. "Fiona, if you ask me, you should cut ties with Yo-Yo. Let your nephew take care of you in your old age." That little weasel of a cousin fawned over him, saying, "Yo-Yo doesn't give a damn about you. From now on, I'll be like a son to you. When you're old, I'll be the one to carry your funeral urn." Dad and I exchanged a look, and we both knew exactly what was going on. With someone backing her up, my mom became even more brazen. It finally clicked for me why she has such a people-pleasing personality. My mother always wanted a son, believing no one would care for her in her old age after she passed away. She went out of her way to curry favor with my cousin, belittling me in front of him, and he would just giggle. My mother trampled over my blood in tears, all for that worthless creature. She stood before me with unshakable confidence, declaring, "If you don't apologize to me today and let me sit at the head of the table, I will sever our mother-daughter relationship." Before she could finish speaking, I cut in with my response, "Let's go, Fiona, the engagement party is off. We're going to sever our mother-daughter relationship first." My mother stood frozen, completely taken aback that I'd agreed, but my uncle and aunt each took her by the arm, their eyes crinkling with poorly concealed delight. They've been coveting our family's wealth for ages. With me out of the picture, they'll have my mother completely under their thumb. This time my father didn't object, only complied. I'd previously mentioned cutting ties with my mother, but he'd always say, "She did give birth to you and raise you. Just be more tolerant and it'll blow over." My sister was driven abroad, my father had to stay at the factory after work, and our whole family was suffocating in a transparent jar because of my mother. My mother was completely dazed throughout, doing whatever the staff told her to do. Her uncle and Aunt kept comforting her. From now on, your nephew will be like a son to you, and he'll take good care of you when you're old. It's just a girl, no big deal if you cut ties. Chapter 7, I sneered. Fiona, from now on, you can just live your life with your nephew. That evening, I changed hotels and held the engagement party all over again. My dad stood there completely stunned, staring at the 10-packed tables of guests. I explained with a laugh that the parents and relatives of Jason's family they saw earlier were all actors I hired, just to prevent my mom from causing a scene right now. My uncle's family is probably busy brainwashing my mom, Jason said. I even resorted to strategies from the art of war just for this engagement party. What can I do? I drew the short straw when it comes to mothers. My dad has finally come to his senses. He's been swallowing his pride for this family all along. But now he's had enough. I stand by every decision my father makes. All these years, he's endured so much pain as the man of the house. Now it's my turn to show him the respect he deserves. I took my annual leave and planned to take my dad on a trip to Xinjiang. The night before our departure, my dad told me that my mom had fallen down the stairs after she moved into my uncle's house. Things were peaceful at first, but within days her old habits resurfaced. Whenever my uncle and aunt were out, my mom would subtly probe my cousin's wife for family secrets. My cousin's wife was completely open with my mom, sharing every little detail. By the time my aunt realized what was happening, rumors about their family were already spreading like wildfire. My aunt was a large, sturdy woman, while my mom was petite and slender, no match for her at all. During their argument, my mom missed a step and tumbled down the stairs. My uncle's family didn't want to deal with her, so they called me instead. Dad, I'll go check on her. You just stay home and rest. Don't go anywhere. Dad is easily swayed. When Mom starts with the waterworks and drama, he won't be able to handle it. I deliberately waited until after lunch to go. When I reached the hospital room door, I could hear Fiona chattering away, bad-mouthing me. Don't be fooled by my unruly daughter's usual antics. The moment she heard I was sick, she came running to wait on me. I need to show her who's really in charge. I pushed the door open. Fiona's expression darkened when she saw me, and she let out a disdainful snort. She noticed my empty hands and spoke in a displeased tone. Yo-yo, are you for real? I haven't eaten yet, and you didn't bring me anything. I was completely baffled. Bring what? Weren't you the one who said people only get sick from overeating, and skipping a few meals is fine? You taught me that yourself. How could you forget? I took her phone and started snapping pictures of her current state, then shared them across all our group chats. What are you doing? How could you just share my private stuff like that? She stammered, her words tumbling out in a flustered mess. I scoffed. They're just a few photos. What's the big deal? No need to be so stingy. Her expression froze, completely speechless from what I'd said. Moments later, her phone started buzzing incessantly with hundreds of incoming messages. Fiona, what happened to you? Did someone hit you? Ugh, who posts such disgusting photos in the group chat? You're ruining my appetite. Messages flooded the group chat like a tidal wave, and Mom's eyes were filled with helplessness. Compared to what I've been through, this is nothing. Just then, the caregiver I'd hired arrived. Fiona's eyes widened in confusion as she protested. Why can't you be the one to take care of me? I don't want a stranger helping me. Suddenly, her face flushed crimson and her body began to tremble slightly. The patient in the next bed exclaimed, "Oh my, you've wet the bed." The caregiver swiftly pulled on her gloves and sprang into action. I stood to the side, snapping pictures with her phone. Fiona, I just came to see you make a fool of yourself. Enjoy your little hospital stay. I'm taking my dad on a trip to Xinjiang. Chapter 8. As I was leaving the hospital, a nurse mysteriously called me over. I was skeptical. The attending physician slid Fiona's test results toward me with a grave expression. When I saw the final result, I was utterly stunned. She was actually pregnant. My dad had been living at the factory for 6 months, and he only came home when I returned. Fiona is having an affair. Thinking of how hard my father worked for our family, my fists clenched and fire burned in my heart. I need to find out who's behind this. I came out of the fruit shop carrying a big box of cherries and headed back to my apartment complex. I know Fiona all too well. If I asked her directly, she'd never tell me the truth, so I had to find another way. My neighbor Sally spotted me and eagerly pulled me aside to chat about this and that. I let out an intentional sigh and told her my mom was sick. I caught a glimpse of the large group nearby, all ears, listening intently to what I was saying. Sally, I'm only telling you this. I mysteriously pulled her aside, and when she heard the news about my mom being pregnant, her eyes nearly popped out of her head. I then casually shoved the cherries I was holding into her hand. Auntie, I trust you more than anyone. Could you help me find out who the man behind my mom really is? Her eyes lit up with greed, and without any hesitation, she happily tipped the cherries and promised with a hand over her heart that she'd get the job done for me. I didn't tell Dad about this, but I did remind him to keep a close watch on his paycheck. I spent half a month traveling around Xinjiang with Dad, posting pictures of all sorts of delicious food on my social media every day, but I set the privacy so only Fiona and my uncle's family could see them during that time. She called me hundreds of times, but I never answered any of them. I only secretly inquired. With the caregiver, the doctor, unable to reach me, told her the news about the pregnancy. Fiona flew into a rage in the hospital room, screaming that the doctor must have made a mistake. How could she, a woman of impeccable virtue, possibly be pregnant? She believed the truth would vindicate her, but she became the laughingstock among the patients. The scorn was especially palpable when they learned she was pregnant despite having been separated from her husband for a long time. The day Dad and I returned from our trip to Xinjiang, Fiona happened to be discharged from the hospital. She dashed into the neighborhood like a madwoman and knocked on someone's door in the dead of night. That night, the dogs in the neighborhood barked incessantly until dawn. As fate would have it, the man who got my mother pregnant turned out to be Sally's husband. He was a timid man who, when faced with the formidable Sally, was so terrified that he hid in the bathroom, afraid to come out. The two women fought all the way from inside the house to the building entrance. Word has it that Sally was on a rampage that night, like a raging fury. This really stirred up a hornet's nest. Fiona ended up in the hospital again, and tragically, she lost the baby she was carrying. The next day, rumors about her were flying everywhere, and for a long time, she became the talk of the town. When I showed her the video I had taken, she buried her face in the quilt and wept uncontrollably. When I was nearly violated by that perverted man, my private affairs were spread everywhere too. What are you crying for? Who are you performing for? My words, laced with sarcasm, pierced her heart like a sharp blade. This is human nature. One only understands heart-wrenching pain after experiencing others' suffering firsthand. Fiona was sobbing uncontrollably, begging me to put in a good word for her with my dad. She didn't want the divorce. She was hurting, but she didn't realize how much her actions had wounded me. The only reason she didn't want the divorce was because she still saw my dad as her fallback plan, her safety net and cash cow. Fiona, we must get a divorce. My dad's voice was firm and resolute, his usually stooped posture now standing tall and straight. Turns out he was worried I'd get shortchanged, so he'd been secretly following me the whole time, and no man, no matter how easygoing, could stomach being made a complete cuckold. Fiona ended up getting nothing in the divorce settlement, but my dad, out of lingering affection, left her some money. My uncle's family had been counting on getting the house from her, but now those hopes have completely vanished into thin air. Fiona was dumbstruck, her eyes welling up as she begged my uncle to take her in. Chapter 9. My uncle sat with his legs crossed, picking his nose before giving her a kick. Sis, how can you not even handle your own man and daughter? You're completely useless. She pleaded with her cousin. Troy, your aunt has always doted on you. Since you were little, I always saved the best treats for you. You can't just abandon me now. Seeing the timing was right, her uncle finally rose lazily to his feet and helped her up. Since you're my own sister, I'll let you move back in, but only if you find a way to get Yo-Yo to buy Troy an apartment. Fiona's eyes lit up, and she immediately revealed that I had several $100,000 in savings. My cousin's eyes gleamed with a sly light as he immediately claimed to have a solution. I've been secretly hiring people to keep tabs on Fiona and my uncle's family, and I couldn't help but feel sorry for her when I heard the news. She could have had a much better life, yet she insisted on heading down a path of no return. I'm done interfering. Time to drop the savior complex and let people live with the consequences of their choices. I didn't tell my dad about this to spare him the worry. I limited my movements and kept Jason informed of my whereabouts. That evening, as I was getting into my car in the underground garage, two men suddenly threw a sack over my head from behind. Let's see how tough you act now, Yo-Yo. That voice, it was my cousin Troy. They took my phone and stole all the valuables from my bag. After getting out of the car and tearing off the sack, I saw my uncle's whole family was there. They sold me to this 40-year-old disabled man. My cousin threatened to take compromising photos of me unless I gave him my bank card PIN, saying he'd ruin my chances of marrying Jason. I pretended to be terrified and stammered out the password with faint hesitation. Just as my cousin was gloating over his success, police officers stormed into the room. My uncle's entire family stood frozen in disbelief. They confiscated my phone. So how did the police track us down? Rubbing my sore, red arm, I pulled a tiny phone from my undergarments and waved it in front of them. Ever since I realized my cousin's family had ill intentions toward me, I'd been carrying two phones. The one in my bag was just a decoy. They were handcuffed, their eyes filled with despair. Before leaving, I let them in on a secret. Fiona contracted a severe STD from Sally's husband, which led to doctors forcing her to terminate her last pregnancy. It wasn't due to her advanced maternal age, but because she was diagnosed with a serious infectious disease a while back. When I accompanied Jason's parents for their medical checkup, I ran into Sally at the hospital. With a grim face, she cursed her husband, calling him every name in the book for cheating on her with multiple women in their neighborhood and giving her the disease. She said gloomily that Fiona probably wasn't any better off, and that it was all karma coming back around. Fiona has never been one for personal hygiene, and with my uncle's whole family living under the same roof as her, I didn't need to spell out the rest. My cousin suddenly started screaming hysterically, spewing a stream of curses. The officers looked disgusted as they hauled them into the police car. Chapter 10. My uncle's entire family was sentenced, and according to their lawyer, they all contracted STDs and are now living in agony every day. Fiona wasn't directly involved in the kidnapping, so they released her after holding her for a while. With her home gone, she had no choice but to come to me. In less than half a year, her hair turned gray and her clouded eyes lost all spark of life. Yo-yo, please save your mother. If you won't help me, I'll go join your father. Before I could utter a word, a barrel-shaped woman charged over, swinging her arms with a whooshing sound as she slapped the woman's face repeatedly from both sides. Exhausted from the beating, the woman slumped to the ground, panting heavily. Only then did I recognize it was Sally. Burdened by her husband's troubles, she had drained the family's entire savings to cover his medical treatment. The moment she laid eyes on Fiona, all her pent-up emotions came pouring out onto her. I contacted a psychiatric hospital. As she was being carried into the vehicle, a passerby kindly warned me that this hospital had a terrible reputation. Patients were reportedly abused and often went hungry. I gave a wry smile and walked away. 6 months later, Jason and I got married. On stage, I realized with a pang that Dad is now my only family left. Through tear-blurred eyes, I spotted a familiar figure. I rubbed my eyes, unable to believe what I was seeing. Dressed in simple white, she walked slowly toward me. It was my sister. My eyes welled up instantly. My sister said she knew about my wedding today, and how could I get married without family by my side? It turns out she'd been quietly keeping up with my life all along. I held my sister in a tight embrace, terrified this might just be a dream, and countless times I'd dreamed of reuniting with my sister, only to wake with nothing but tears. After the wedding, my sister said she still had one last wish to fulfill. I understood immediately and drove her to the psychiatric hospital. During my free time, I'd visit her, and each time she was completely unhinged. The nurse said Fiona had been moved to a different ward for assaulting someone. It was the most dilapidated house, and the stench hit us before we even reached the door. The nurse recoiled in disgust and backed away. Fiona lay in the hospital bed, mumbling incoherently. As I moved closer, I finally made out that she was murmuring my and my sister's names. She looked up with vacant eyes, freezing for a moment when she saw the two of us. My sister's face remained calm. Beneath that tranquil gaze lay a profound sorrow that had seen through the ways of the world. Not a single word passed between the three of us, yet it felt as if volumes had been spoken. As I turned to leave, Fiona rushed after me. Have you seen my 2 daughters? They have so many private little secrets. Let me tell you all about them. I gripped my sister's hand tightly and let out a long, heavy sigh. She was completely out of her mind, yet still clung to her vile nature. A month later, the psychiatrist informed me that Fiona had passed away from her illness. I planned to place her ashes with my grandparents. When I went to retrieve it, a deranged elderly woman snatched the urn, and during the chase, it accidentally shattered in the sink. It took several male nurses considerable effort to finally escort her away. They apologized and explained that Fiona had been spreading the old woman's private matters while she was alive, which led to the incident. Everything happens for a reason. Later, my sister asked me, when did you start setting all this in motion? I smiled and linked my arm through hers. Sis, that doesn't matter anymore. Story 2. I was the purest-blooded princess of the Phoenix clan. On my coming-of-age ceremony, before thousands of clansmen, my true form manifested, not as a glorious phoenix, but as a pitiful lowly black serpent. Yet the jade rabbit I'd rescued transformed into a radiant phoenix, worshipped by the entire clan as the divine phoenix. Branded an impure half-breed, I plummeted from divine grace into the muck. My divine father declared the jade rabbit as his long-lost bloodline, then personally summoned heavenly lightning that flayed me alive. My own brother gouged out the core of this half-breed, my spiritual essence, as compensation for the jade rabbit's years of exile. My childhood sweetheart, the man I was betrothed to, embraced the jade rabbit in his arms as they whispered vows of devotion. Left barely breathing, I was cast by the jade rabbit's own hand into the celestial pool, its waters lethal to gods, where my soul dissolved into nothingness. Even in death, I couldn't comprehend why my true form manifested as a lowly black serpent when I possessed the purest phoenix bloodline. When I opened my eyes again, I'd been reborn on the eve of my coming-of-age ceremony. Your Highness, the 100-feather gown for tomorrow's ceremony has arrived. The Emperor also prepared a phoenix hairpin, they say. The combination will be absolutely stunning. As Peach spoke, she couldn't resist stealing glances at the magnificent feathered gown. The feathers of 100 rare birds were woven with golden threads into a resplendent feathered gown, her eyes filled with longing as she reached out to touch it. The Phoenix clan hasn't crafted a feathered gown in millennia, she murmured. It's even more breathtaking than legends say. Those familiar words sent a violent shudder through my body, the agony of heavenly lightning flaying my flesh and the brutal extraction of my core still burned fresh in my memory. My eyes suddenly welled up with tears. Could this be a rebirth in my past life? I was overjoyed when I received this phoenix feather gown. Since the fall of our mother goddess, not a single new phoenix has been born in our clan for millennia. My people have placed all their hopes upon me, for I am the only offspring of the phoenix goddess and golden dragon god, the purest-blooded princess of the Phoenix clan. On the eve of my coming-of-age ceremony, the entire Phoenix clan pooled their resources to present me with the sacred feather gown, symbolizing my Phoenix heritage. I couldn't tear myself away from its beauty, eagerly donning the feather gown for my rite of passage before the eyes of countless clansmen. When I revealed my true form, I actually transformed into a pitch-black snake. The crowd gasped in horror. My divine father darkened his expression. Juno, this is no time for games at such a crucial moment. Show your true form at once. Stunned myself, I writhed in serpentine coils, desperately channeling my magic, yet no matter how many times I tried, I remained nothing but a black snake. Just as I channeled my magic for the 99th time, a crystalline phoenix cry pierced the heavens. I stared dumbfounded. It was the very moon rabbit I'd rescued with my own hands. Her body erupted in golden radiance as iridescent feathers materialized. She was transforming into a phoenix. The crowd prostrated themselves, worshipping the rabbit as a divine phoenix while branding me an impure-blooded mongrel. With tears welling in my eyes, I turned to gaze upon the Heavenly Father. To my shock, he wept openly while looking at the jade rabbit. To think my true son Onyx wandered the mortal realm for millennia, while some vile low-born serpent usurped his identity. This is utterly unconscionable. With a mere flick of his wrist, he summoned celestial lightning that tore through my flesh, leaving me a bloody, mangled wreck. Amidst my agonized screams, my brother Hayden personally carved out my golden core and presented it to the jade rabbit as a welcoming gift. My poor sister, let me offer you this imposter's core. Though its bloodline is base, it might amuse you as a trinket. Bleeding out in a pool of my own blood, I cast one last hopeful glance at my betrothed, Frost, crown prince of the celestial clan we'd cultivated together since childhood, inseparable companions. Surely he would. Onyx, you're a true phoenix after all. Now we can be together without hiding. Frost, who always maintained an aloof demeanor, was actually smiling as he cradled the jade rabbit in his arms. At this very moment, I'm enduring agony that sears my bones and scorches my soul. Onyx flashed me a triumphant grin before personally shoving me into the celestial pool, a place even gods feared to tread. The razor-sharp gales sliced through my flesh, leaving wounds so deep my bones were visible. Nothing compares to this heartache. In my last conscious moment, I still saw the golden phoenix light erupting from my bones till death. I couldn't understand. With the purest phoenix bloodline in my veins, why did my true form manifest as a lowly black serpent? The agony of my past life remains vivid before my eyes. In this lifetime, I will uncover the truth no matter what. Just like in my past life, I smiled and accepted the 100-feather skirt, but the moment I lowered my head, a cold glint flashed through my eyes. Peach had served me for thousands of years, and she was also the first to discover the jade rabbit. Out of kindness I saved the jade rabbit's life, only to die with bitter regret in the end. In my past life, it must have been Peach and the jade rabbit conspiring together that caused my death. Suppressing my murderous intent, I casually made up an excuse to send Peach away. I've heard snow lotuses grow on the mountain peaks. Fetch some for me. Peach's gaze faltered, panic flashing across her face. Your Highness, your coming-of-age ceremony is tomorrow. How could I possibly leave for the snow mountains? At such a time, my expression turned glacial as an oppressive aura radiated from my entire being, my icy stare pinning her in place. You will obey my command without question. Trembling under the ancestral pressure coursing through her veins, Peach collapsed to her knees, rendered completely speechless. She could only keep kowtowing to me frantically. With a wave of my hand, golden-hued magic forcibly ejected her. Were it not for our millennial-old bond, I'd have executed her on the spot. Yet lacking concrete evidence, I still harbor an inexplicable hesitation toward Peach. I'll kill her after uncovering the truth. There's no rush. Tossing the feathered skirt aside, I strode out of the bedchamber. After rummaging through the archives for hours, I finally unearthed a bloodline detection ritual. I wonder if the jade rabbit has tampered with my bloodline by now. I decided to run a quick test first. Following the ancient ritual described in the tome, I flicked my right wrist and a crimson gold Phoenix feather materialized in my palm. This was one of the few genuine phoenix feathers my divine mother left me after her fall. A dagger appeared in my left hand, then reversed its grip before plunging straight toward my chest, dripped 3 drops of heart's blood onto the phoenix feather, then set it ablaze. Amidst the flames, faint crimson gold flickers appeared as blood and feather turned to ash, filling the air with a sweet, ethereal fragrance. The moment the fire died out, a golden phoenix silhouette emerged from the embers. I stood transfixed as tears began to fall. This proves I am truly the daughter of the Mother Goddess, with phoenix blood coursing through my veins. After enduring slander and slaughter, I now know with certainty my true form could never be some lowly black serpent. Juno, are you in there? The door rattled with Frost's voice behind it. Bitterness welled up in my heart, yet I deliberately softened my voice. Frost, could you do something for me? Frost looked puzzled but complied without question, turning to leave without even asking why. When he returned, he handed me a tuft of rabbit fur and a small jade-green vial containing unmistakable drops of heart's blood. I thanked him, and Frost gazed at me, the usually aloof immortal's eyes now brimming with tenderness. He raised his hand as if to tousle my hair, then withdrew it with a shy murmur. Juno, after your coming-of-age ceremony tomorrow, we can be wed. Gazing at Frost's devoted expression, I felt momentarily dazed. The man who discarded me like trash in our past life now burns with affection. Which version reveals Frost's true nature? Ice filled my heart as I bid him a hollow farewell. I shut the door and eagerly dripped the jade rabbit's heart blood onto the phoenix feather before igniting the flames. Amidst the fire, a pure white glow flickered faintly as the blood and feather burned to ashes, instead of the previous sweet fragrance. A foul stench now filled the air. The moment the flames died out, the vision within became clear, and what I saw left me utterly stunned. It's actually a phoenix too. Onyx really is a phoenix, but the goddess only bore me as her daughter. By all rights, I should be the only phoenix in existence. What in the world is going on? I stormed out with a dark expression, utterly baffled by the reason. With the coming-of-age ceremony approaching, am I doomed to relive the misery of my past life? Dazed and distracted, I bumped straight into someone on the road. Juno, you seem really unsettled. What's going on? I looked up and saw my brother Hayden, his eyes filled with concern as he reached for my arm. Are you feeling unwell? Tell me, I'll get you some herbal medicine. His caring expression was just like when we were children. When I first gained consciousness in my fledgling years, the Mother Goddess had already fallen, and the Father God became a broken man, wandering abroad perpetually. It was my elder brother who shouldered the Phoenix clan's burdens, managing tribal affairs while raising me single-handedly. The first magic I mastered, the first gown I ever owned, all gifts from his hands. He nurtured me with such devotion, pouring his entire being into spoiling me until I became the undisputed little princess of the Phoenix clan. Yet it was he who personally carved out my core essence, watching me writhe in agony, watching my spirit break. Hayden merely presented the bloodied core to the jade rabbit with reverence. He declared, only a phoenix of Onyx's pure lineage deserves to be my sister. Remembering my past life, I fought to steady my trembling hands and flashed Hayden a saccharine smile. Brother, I can't stand that jade rabbit. Would you kill her for me? Without a moment's hesitation, Hayden charged at Onyx with his sword drawn. Her face was pale with panic, tears welling in her eyes as she pleaded, Your Highness, what are you doing? Hayden struck out with a palm strike so fierce that the sheer force sent Onyx coughing up blood. Blood trickled from Onyx's lips as she lay sprawled on the ground, her voice trembling with pitiful vulnerability. Your Highness, Princess, has Onyx done something wrong? She deliberately raised her voice, drawing the attention of bystanders. Watching the growing crowd gather, I couldn't suppress a cold sneer. Ever since the day I saved Onyx, she's been putting on this pitiful act, claiming her true form as a jade rabbit. Out of kindness, I took her to Phoenix Realm to recuperate. Along the way, I discovered we shared the same birthday, which delighted me so much I treated her like a sister. Yet in the end, it was she who personally pushed me into the jade pool, condemning me to eternal damnation. I watched the scene unfold with morbid fascination, eagerly anticipating the moment Hayden would enter life. Hayden coldly raised his sword, the blade pressing against Onyx's chest. In that fateful moment, the Divine Father materialized instantly, deflecting Hayden's sword with a sweep of his hand as he thundered, As young masters of the Phoenix clan, how dare you slaughter the innocent so wantonly? What crime has she even committed? With the Divine Father backing her, the onlookers began pointing fingers at Hayden, their murmurs quickly drowning out the two of us. I sighed inwardly. With the Divine Father protecting Onyx, there was no way I could kill her today. Masking my true feelings, I stepped forward with a sweet smile. Don't be angry, Father. Brother was just teasing Onyx. Seeing the Divine Father hesitate, I Quickly added, but Onyx is a moon rabbit after all, and her injuries have healed. It's hardly proper for her to linger in the Phoenix realm indefinitely. With an innocent expression, I turned to Onyx. Today, I shall escort you out of Phoenix Dominion. A hush fell over the crowd. The Phoenix clan had always been xenophobic. It was only through my insistence that Jade Rabbit had been permitted entry in the first place. Her departure now was only natural. The Divine Father gritted his teeth and conceded. Very well, you personally oversee her safe passage. No harm must come to her. I nodded in acknowledgement and personally escorted Onyx to the border of Phoenix Domain. The moment I pushed her through the barrier, Onyx suddenly turned back and flashed me a grin. Juno, you've been reborn too, haven't you? If I could scatter your soul to the winds in our past life, this incarnation will be no different. Did you really think banishing Peach and then me would make tomorrow's coming of age ceremony foolproof? Just wait, I can't wait to see your expression when you turn into that little black serpent, so helpless, so shocked, so pitiful. Onyx enunciated each word while watching my face grow paler. See you tomorrow, little black snake. The moment the words left my lips, Onyx vanished before my eyes. My mind reeled in shock as the blood drained from my face. Could it be Onyx was reborn too? From what she implied, tomorrow I'd still be doomed to transform into that black serpent. A crushing sense of helplessness overwhelmed me. Despite inheriting Supreme Phoenix bloodline, my true form is nothing but a wretched low-tier black serpent. After millennia of devoted cultivation and relentless effort, is this wretched fate all I deserve? Like an inescapable destiny I can never break free from, I wandered through the Phoenix realm like a lost soul. My millennia-straightened spine finally buckling under the weight, my once arrogant face now bore nothing but world-weary resignation. For the first time, the thought of surrender flickered through my mind. After wandering aimlessly through the Phoenix realm for untold hours, I stumbled blindly into a cavern. As night fell outside, I drifted into unconsciousness within. In that moment of descending darkness, a tear traced down my cheek as I faintly murmured, "Mother." At dawn the next day, Hayden arrived at the cave entrance with her maidservants and the feathered gown in tow. Juno, the coming-of-age ceremony is about to begin. Why aren't you dressed and ready? No time left. Put on the 100-feather gown now. We must reach the sacred land. I raised my eyes, all shadows vanishing from my face as confidence radiated through my serene smile. We don't need that gown. Let's go, unless you think we still have time to spare. Ignoring Hayden's protests, I soared toward the Phoenix clan's holy ground, the blazing moon precipice. Crowds from all corners of the realm have gathered today, eager to witness the Phoenix's rebirth and its glorious transformation. As the sea of people surged, I soared to the highest peak of the blazing moon cliff. The Divine Father beckoned with a smile. My child Juno, today marks your coming of age. I shall personally bestow spiritual energy upon you. Raising his hand, a stream of pure azure spiritual energy flowed from his fingertips. With a detached gaze, I observed the pale blue spiritual energy, unique to dragonkind. But was my Divine Father truly a dragon? Sidestepping gracefully, golden energy surged from within me, effortlessly dissolving the azure glow. As sacred chants resonated, the surrounding gazes grew feverish with fervor. I took a deep breath, circulating spiritual energy through my meridians as it gradually cleansed my pathways. A golden light flashed as my true form materialized. Amidst the crowd's gasps, I revealed my true form. The golden radiance slowly faded, replaced by a clear phoenix cry echoing from the blazing moon cliff. The crowd erupted in joy, their eyes locked onto the golden aura surrounding me, but the radiance was so blinding that nothing could be seen clearly. Dark clouds veiled the sky, casting a gloomy pall over the land. Someone suddenly looked up and gasped, "Look at the sky, it's..." The crowd lifted their heads in unison. A colossal phoenix circled overhead, its massive form blotting out the sunlight. The crowd erupted in murmurs as several Phoenix clan elders wept with joy. After millennia, the phoenix is reborn. Heaven bless our clan, heaven bless us all. Even the typically stoic Frost couldn't suppress a flicker of delight. Hayden couldn't contain his joy as wings burst forth from his shoulder blades. The phoenix circled 3 times in the sky before gracefully descending. The moment she resumed human form, the surroundings fell silent before erupting into even more animated discussions. Why isn't it Juno? Wasn't today supposed to be Princess Juno of the Phoenix clan's coming-of-age ceremony? Why isn't she a phoenix? She looks familiar. Wait. Isn't that the jade rabbit Juno picked up? What was her name? Onyx. Onyx wore a perfectly poised smile, dressed in that feathered gown, her eyes gleaming with barely concealed triumph. She extended her hand, pointing directly toward where I stood. Behold, the so-called princess our Phoenix clan has worshipped for millennia. What a vile creature she truly is. As her finger pointed, the golden radiance shattered, revealing my true form before the crowd, a repulsive, low-born black serpent amidst The crowd's shocked gasps. Onyx's lips curled into a cruel smile as phoenix fire coalesced in her palm. On the very day I reclaim my phoenix throne, I shall first slay this bastard who's stolen my identity for years. The sacred phoenix flames came rushing toward me. Scorching heat infused with spiritual energy engulfed everything. True phoenix fire consumes all things, even souls and marrow. I didn't even flinch, letting out a cold laugh as I watched the approaching flames. In this new life, Onyx's desire to kill me has grown utterly unrestrained. Her eyes burned with hatred toward me, brimming with barely contained triumph. Onyx projected her words directly into my mind using spiritual energy. Juno, consumed by phoenix flames, do you really think you'll get a second chance? I let out a soft laugh as scorching flames engulfed me, my entire body igniting. This foolish rabbit still doesn't realize I'm no black serpent, but an ancient true phoenix, for the primordial phoenix, the first death rewinds time. The second death brings rebirth from ashes. My flesh and blood were completely consumed by Onyx's phoenix flames, yet my spirit hovered midair, sensing the surging spiritual energy from all directions. 10,000 miles away, the ancient true phoenix's skeletal remains stirred beneath the snow-capped mountains. I watched the scene at Blazing Moon Cliff with a cold laugh, gathering strength for my rebirth. A burst of Onyx's phoenix flames consumed me entirely, leaving the ashen moon cliff in stunned silence as everyone believed my soul had been utterly annihilated. Hayden stared blankly at the scorched remains, now nothing but desolation, but then he turned his gaze toward Onyx and demanded, "What the hell just happened?" My divine father roared with laughter, his mirth echoing across the ashen moon cliff. I perished on the spot, yet the divine father showed no notice, his face radiant with joy. He clapped Onyx's shoulder, eyes brimming with pride and satisfaction. Since Onyx has revealed his true phoenix form before all, the truth is now plain for all to see. Onyx alone carries my bloodline, so pure, so undiluted. Hayden froze in shock, lifting his gaze to the father god. "Father, are you saying Onyx is actually yours and mother's daughter, my true blood sister?" Onyx smiled serenely as she stepped forward to clasp Hayden's hand. Her face radiated pure innocence like an unblemished white flower as she whispered tenderly, "Yes, brother, I'm the true phoenix heir. That Juno stole my identity for over 1,000 years, she's nothing but a vile little black serpent. That wretched species desecrates our phoenix domain just by setting foot here." The term wretched species seemed to strike a chord in Hayden. His furrowed brow relaxed as his tone softened. Yes, my sister Hayden undoubtedly possesses the purest phoenix bloodline." I let out a quiet laugh, such were my own flesh and blood. Everyone rejoices at Onyx's homecoming, celebrating the birth of a new phoenix in the Phoenix clan. Did anyone spare a single moment to mourn my death, even if I were just a little black snake? I've stood by their side for millennia. Was all that familial love from the past just an illusion? So cold-hearted, so utterly ruthless. Despite the sorrows of my past life, I still felt my eyes stinging with unshed tears. Frost, who'd grown up by my side all these years, was now kneeling on one knee, proposing to Onyx, never one for words, his flushed face now bore an expression of utmost sincerity. "Onyx, you and the Celestial Emperor's daughter were betrothed before birth. Your return to the Wind Throne now feels like heaven-sent fortune. I wish to ask for your hand, Onyx. My heart has long been yours. Would you honor me as the Celestial Crown Princess?" Frost knelt before Onyx with ink-black hair cascading down, his spine straight as jade bamboo in a single-knee genuflection. An aura of aristocratic grace emanated from his entire being. Onyx's eyes welled up with tears as she covered her mouth in astonishment, sobbing with joy. "Brother Frost, is this really true?" As Onyx accepted the marriage proposal, the two embraced tenderly while cheers erupted around them. The onlookers beamed with delight, applauding. The Phoenix Princess and the Celestial Prince, what a match made in heaven. Others sneered mockingly. That Juno, no wonder she trained so obsessively. Turns out she's just low-born trash afraid of being exposed. Pa, a lowly black snake dreaming of becoming a phoenix. What a joke, what a despicable wretch. I stood frozen, watching as all those once friendly, fawning faces turned against me. Seeing me terrified wasn't enough. They'd gladly stomp me into the mud themselves. How dare they? Why should my diligent cultivation become their ammunition against me? What does it matter if my lineage is humble? I've never judged others by bloodline. How dare they use this against me now? My eyes gradually turned bloodshot as a single tear fell. The fury in my heart is consuming me like wildfire. Beneath the snow-capped mountains, the phoenix bones soared skyward, gradually coalescing into a skeletal form between heaven and earth. A pair of warm hands cupped my face, gently wiping away my tears. Mother, mother. The moment I recognized the figure before me, tears burst forth uncontrollably as I broke into loud sobs. I never shed a tear through all of it. The unjust death, the betrayal, the siege of humiliation. Yet now, with Mother simply wiping away my tears. I wept with every fiber of my being. A faint silhouette cradled me, whispering comfort. Juno, don't cry. The bloodline of the ancient phoenix has awakened. Go forth and do what you must. Remember what I told you in the cave last night. Show no mercy to those who've wronged you. Her spectral form grew translucent as she kissed my forehead, thrusting my soul into the phoenix's skeletal frame. With a final wave of her hand, she spoke her parting words. Juno, Mommy loves you. My soul clung to the phoenix's skeletal remains. The bleached bones began regenerating flesh anew, until the very moment my spirit became one with it. A golden light erupted from my body as the fundamental laws governing all creation flooded my mind in an instant. Squinting, I watched those visions flash before my eyes. So, Onyx truly was the daughter of the Divine Father. I too am the Divine Father's daughter. Our Divine Father was never a golden dragon. His true form was merely a black serpent, yet my mother, the last phoenix in existence, fell irrevocably in love with him. She willingly sacrificed half her spiritual core to cultivate his power, transforming him into a golden dragon. They wed without incident, conceiving me after Hayden was born. At the brink of childbirth, she discovered the celestial father's affair with a jade rabbit. Heartbroken, she suffered a difficult labor and brought me into this world. Before I could awaken my spiritual consciousness, she grew frail and perished. Then the daughter of the celestial father and the jade rabbit was born. They named her Onyx, driven by selfish motives. My father swapped our core essences and paved a golden path for Onyx. He awaited this coming-of-age ceremony to enshrine Onyx upon the phoenix altar. As the truth unfolded before me, my eyelids slowly closed. When they opened again, my gaze held no warmth, only glacial emptiness. Dark clouds now choked the sky, their growling thunder shaking the air. A blinding streak of light pierced the heavens like a divine sword thrusting toward the firmament. A crystalline phoenix cry echoed across the skies above Moonburn Cliff. Countless birds converged from all directions as flowers burst into bloom across the land. Sacred chants resounded through the skies as the primordial phoenix descended upon Moonburn Cliff, encircled by 100 birds. In an instant, everyone present felt the primal pressure coursing through their veins. The phoenix clansmen immediately dropped to their knees, while others from across the realms fared slightly better, though their legs trembled violently as they struggled to remain standing. Hayden, my closest blood relative, felt it most acutely and could no longer lift his head, prostrating himself completely. I descended like a deity. The primordial deity, with his profound cultivation, was the first to recognize my face. His expression turned ashen as he gasped, Juno, but weren't you incinerated by Onyx's phoenix true flame? I let out a cold laugh as divine lightning descended from the heavens, striking him down. How dare a faithless wretch like you utter the sacred name of the ancient true phoenix? This heavenly thunder was unlike what he summoned in his past life. It was the wrath of the heavens, a divine rainbow lightning strike. With just one strike, it shattered the father god's millennia of cultivation in an instant. Clutching his chest, he let out a pained groan as blood trickled from his lips, his eyes wide with disbelief. The primordial phoenix, you're actually the primordial phoenix. No wonder he was stunned. The 4 legendary divine beasts had vanished eons ago, and the world hadn't witnessed a true celestial beast's descent in ages. But a 9-colored golden lightning streaked across the sky, striking him with pinpoint accuracy. I lifted my gaze, voice icy. I told you, you're unworthy. The divine bolt instantly reduced him to his true form. With a flick of my hand, my mother's inner core flew from his body into my palm, stripped of the phoenix core. He instantly transformed from a golden dragon into a pitch-black serpent, exposed in his true form. The black serpent burned with shame under the crowd's astonished gazes, wishing the ground would swallow him whole. I cast him a cold glance. For creatures like him, being dethroned from divinity was a fate worse than death. Hayden stared at me in stunned silence, his face a mask of disbelief. Luo, you. Having learned from the Divine Father's mistake, he dared not speak my true name. Yet as I gazed at Hayden, the hatred in my heart burned fiercer still. My voice still carried that same detached tone when I spoke. Hayden, speak plainly. I'm giving you this one chance to say your piece. Hayden's eyes lit up with joy as he exclaimed, Little sister, I knew you couldn't possibly be one of those vile black serpents. A murderous glint flashed through my eyes. As expected, bloodline hierarchy means everything to Hayden. His former devotion to me stemmed solely from believing I possessed pure phoenix blood. The moment he learned my true form was a black serpent while Onyx's was a phoenix, he abandoned me without hesitation to curry favor with Onyx. Neither familial bonds nor blood relations hold any significance in Hayden's heart. As long as his sister remains the most noble phoenix, nothing else matters. How utterly revolting. I could bear it no longer. With a sweep of my hand, crimson gold spiritual energy streamed into Hayden's body like wisps of smoke. In an instant, his body erupted In golden light as he collapsed, writhing and howling in agony, I looked down at him with detached calm. For the sake of our long companionship, though your past offenses were grave, I shall spare your life, yet your punishment remains. I shall extract the noble blood your mother bestowed upon you, reducing you to the black serpent you once so despised. How pitiful! Hayden had always scorned those of inferior bloodlines, yet fate would have it that we both carried the bloodline of the black serpent. In my past life, when I perished, the black serpent's blood was exhausted, awakening the ancient phoenix bloodline and triggering time's reversal. This lifetime, consumed by Onyx's phoenix flames, I've been reborn through, now truly the primordial phoenix. Hayden screamed in agony as his very essence was torn from him, pleading with me, Juno, please no, I admit my mistake, don't do this to me. Annoyed by the noise, I waved my hand and flung both him and the Heavenly Father out. An eerie silence fell over the ashen moon cliff, all trembling before my merciless cruelty. My gaze locked onto Onyx's position. She collapsed to the ground, her face deathly pale. When she noticed my gaze, she crawled toward me trembling, then knelt and began kowtowing frantically. Please, spare me. I was wrong. I swear I was wrong. Punish the Divine Father instead. It's all his fault, all his. I'd had enough of her blubbering. My hand plunged into her consciousness, churning its depths. The agony of a spiritual sea invasion rivals being torn limb from limb. Onyx screamed in torment, howling in unbearable pain. I sneered, that golden core has been in your possession for 3 millennia. Since when did it become yours, Aarg? As Onyx's shrieks echoed, I retrieved the crimson core and swallowed it whole. Onyx reverted to her true form, a black rabbit with awakened intelligence but completely drained of spiritual power. I averted my gaze from her and turned to Frost instead. My voice turned icy. Since you just publicly declared your love for Onyx, our engagement is naturally null and void. I casually grabbed Onyx by the ear and flung him away. Take your wife and get out of here. Frost stared at me blankly, then blasted Onyx away with spiritual energy before pleading with me. I was possessed by demons earlier. You know you're the only one I love, Juno. Please forgive this momentary lapse. A bolt of heavenly lightning struck down toward Frost. He grunted stubbornly, Juno, I love you. Another bolt of divine lightning struck. With a dismissive wave, my figure vanished from the blazing moon cliff, leaving only these words behind. Frost, even your father god would kneel before me in reverence. How dare you speak of love? When next we meet, remember to kneel and pay homage. I've wandered the mortal realm for millennia. Word reached me of some old acquaintances. The Hayden father and son were hunted by the Serpent clan, meeting their end through death by 1,000 cuts. With a darkened expression, Frost dragged Onyx back to the celestial realm, subjecting her to daily torture. He blamed Onyx for ruining his perfect marriage prospect. He could have wed the ancient phoenix and shared supreme glory and divine power. Rumor has it Onyx was turned into a human swine, left to suffer without release in death. The sunlight is just right as I become an ordinary little bird, dozing off on a tree branch. All those toxic people and messy situations from the past are no longer my concern. Story 2, my alumnus in Country M sent me a message. The experimental subjects have initially shown zombie characteristics. It may break out in the near future. At that time, I had finally paid enough Social Security contributions in Washington for 5 years and was about to buy a house. I immediately stopped the pen I was signing with and tore up the house purchase contract. Sorry, I'm not buying it. By the way, I suggest you stock up on food. Enough for a year. I had neither a house nor a car in Washington. Fortunately, I had an RV. Carter would never tell me what research he was engaged in Country M, but some academic-related questions he occasionally asked me gave me a vague idea. I advised him that it was immoral and he should stop as soon as possible. He didn't reply later. I went to visit his parents with some fruits, but I learned from the neighbor that they had been picked up by some foreigners. Only then did I realize that he had been caught by his weakness and had no choice, probably because of our past friendship. When the research was nearing success, he sent me a warning message. The zombie wave was coming. I carefully calculated that it would only take a week for it to spread from Country M to here. Since I guessed the content of Carter's research, I had already figured out what to do if such a day really came. I'm not a superhero and can't save everyone. All I could do was vaguely remind the salesperson just now and post a message on the internet with a small account. Zombies are coming. Stock up quickly. A few minutes later, my account was blocked for posting false information. I could only protect myself. I couldn't go back to the rental house. It was too small and old, and its defensibility was extremely poor. I decided to stay in my RV. My only hobby was self-driving tours to ensure comfort during long trips. I used my first deposit to buy an RV. It cost over 600,000 yuan, which was enough for me to pay the down payment for a house in my hometown. Now it seems that it was worth it due to license plate restrictions. I usually parked the car in a free parking lot in the suburbs. Now I need to drive it to find a hidden and at least semi-enclosed place to store things. After driving around the suburbs for half a day, I found an abandoned air raid shelter. There was no one around. The entrance of the shelter could just be blocked by the RV, and there was a gas station 3 kilometers away. I measured it with my steps and phone. It was about 100 square meters here. After choosing the place, I parked the car at the entrance, took a taxi to the car rental company, and rented a pickup truck. In the next few days, I would rely on it to transport goods. I drove the pickup truck back to the rental house first, packed up all the useful things, and moved them onto the truck. Then I went to the hardware, labor protection, and market and bought cleaning tools, tarpaulins, shelves, miner's lamps, woven bags, electric drills, thick and thin hemp ropes, and expansion screws. I also went to the supermarket and bought insecticides. Before purchasing other supplies, I had to plan the air raid shelter first. Pulling a truckload of tools, I returned to the air raid shelter. I put on my labor protection clothing, plastic shoes, and a mask, turned on the miner's lamp and adjusted the brightness, and then started the first round of cleaning. It could be seen that no one had been here before. There was a thick layer of dust and fallen leaves inside, the garbage filled 20 woven bags. After sweeping, I sprayed insecticide again. In late autumn, there might still be some stubborn insects. While waiting for the smell to dissipate, I pulled the garbage out and threw it away. On my way back, I passed a convenience store and went in to buy some bento, but thinking that eating hot food might become a luxury in the future, I put down the bento and went to the barbecue shop next to it. The meat was sizzling on the grill, and the aroma filled the air. I didn't care if it was hot and wrapped it in perilla leaves and stuffed it into my mouth. It was so delicious. The shop gave me barley tea to relieve the greasiness. After eating and drinking my fill, I suddenly felt a sense of sadness as if I were having my last meal. When paying the bill, I said, if possible, stock up on more food recently, enough for a year. The boss was stunned at first, then smiled and said, I stocked up a whole kitchen during the epidemic. The freezer is still full. Just eat. Hearing this, I nodded reassuringly and left. I had promised not to care about others, but I just couldn't help it. The nearby metro was still open. I planned to finish tidying up the air raid shelter tonight no matter what, so I went in and stocked up on some instant foods. Once it was tidied up, I could put some of them away first. There was no reference data on the mutation and spread speed of zombies. Maybe they would break out next to me. Time was tight, and I had to race against time. When I returned to the shelter, I laid a layer of tarpaulin on the ground. It had been neglected for years, and I didn't know if it would get damp when it rained. Then I assembled the shelves and lined them up. Because the cave was arched, there was a large irregular space above. I drilled a few holes with the electric drill and tied a few ropes to dry things. After the initial tidying up, I placed the things I brought back from the rental house and the food I bought at Metro on the shelves one by one. By the time I finished, it was already 3 o'clock in the morning. I parked the RV well to block the entrance of the shelter and then went back to the car and lay down reassuringly. While trying to fall asleep, I was calculating in my mind what to buy tomorrow. Suddenly, my phone vibrated. Victoria, I broke up. Can I come to Washington to stay with you tomorrow? It was my best friend, Nora. We grew up in the same orphanage. Just at this critical moment, it would be a lie to say that I didn't resist. Nora was soft-hearted. In this kind of situation, I was really afraid that she would cause trouble. After hesitating again and again, I typed the reply and pressed send. After sleeping for 4 hours, I got up. I first went to the market to buy some dried goods that were easy to store and then about a week's worth of fresh ingredients. The only problem was that the air raid shelter had no electricity, and the power supply of the RV was not enough to drive electrical appliances. For food, I could only mainly rely on convenience foods with a long shelf life. Thinking of this, I went to the pharmacy and bought a bunch of nutritional tablets, vitamins, and various commonly used medicines and medical devices. When the truck bed was almost full, Nora called, Victoria, I'm here. Yes, I still agreed to let her come. When I saw her, I was startled. Behind her was a much larger truck, and I didn't know what kind of machines were loaded on it. Solar generators. Didn't you say you wanted to go camping? I brought 5 over. That's right. Her family had worked on the rural lighting project. Although we both grew up in the orphanage, I was sent there because my parents died in an accident, and she was a kidnapped child who was rescued in an anti-trafficking operation. After staying in the orphanage for 4 or 5 years, she was found by her biological parents and returned to her family. This was really a pleasant surprise. Nora said that these generators could supply the normal household electricity consumption of 2 villas. As long as there was sun, they could be used for more than 20 years. I quickly took her to the mall and bought 3 freezers and various essential electrical appliances. I also ordered a bunch of meat and seafood. Now I didn't have to worry about food at all. Nora thought it was strange that I was buying so many things just for camping. After hesitating again and again, I told her the truth. There was a complex expression on her face. She seemed to think I was joking, but she also seemed to believe it a little. At this time, a message from Carter came again. There was only one video. The background seemed to be a laboratory. A person in a white coat was standing with his back to the camera in front of a door. He seemed to be unlocking the door. The next moment, the door was suddenly pushed open. A zombie rushed out, and before the person in the white coat could even make a sound, his neck was bitten. He struggled a few times on the ground and then died. Nora screamed in fright. Is it really true? The zombie, which had been biting the person on the ground, suddenly turned around as if it heard the sound outside the screen. Then it rushed over, very fast. Then, the screen spun, and only the sounds of bones breaking and biting could be heard. I was stunned and even forgot to breathe. The phone in the screen landed steadily, and the lens was facing the ceiling. When I thought the video was over, a pair of terrifying eyes full of only the whites of the eyes and surrounded by bloodstains suddenly appeared in front of the lens. Now even I was scared out of my wits. I quickly exited the video. It's so scary. You have to protect yourself. Carter didn't reply. Carter, are you okay? Carter, my heart suddenly tightened. Was this video recorded by Carter? I couldn't afford to be sad. If I didn't hurry up, the next one to be zombified might be us. Nora and I divided the work. She continued to buy food and daily necessities and return the rented pickup truck. I went to modify the RV. It could be seen from the video sent by Carter that zombies were very strong. The shoulders of the person in the white coat were bitten off, although the material of the RV was harder than human bones. Just in case, it still needed to be strengthened. Miss, this is a legal modification. We can't do it. The employee of the modification shop spread his hands, looking helpless. I scanned the payment QR code on the door and entered 100,000 yuan and directly paid. Can you do it now? He couldn't hide his happy expression. If I don't do it for money, I'm an idiot. Come and pick up the car tomorrow, add a circle of protective nets, and then put anti-peeping films on all the glasses, the kind that people can't see inside from the outside. I instructed. Don't worry, sister, it'll be impenetrable. Just as I was about to leave, I remembered something and scanned another 10,000 yuan for him. Gasoline. Give me as many barrels as you have. He was startled and said sheepishly, you look so gentle. But you're not simple. When I went to the backyard just now, I saw a worker stealing gas from the customer's car with a pipe. I guess it was also part of their business. After the outbreak, the gas station probably wouldn't operate normally. For us, gasoline was as important as food. On my way back, I bought a few machetes, although short weapons were not very handy, just in case. When I returned to the air raid shelter, I couldn't help exclaiming, we've opened a convenience store here. The originally empty cave was now full. The 3 freezers were connected outside, and there was even a circle of cabinets wrapped around them. There was everything to eat and use. Nora, you really impressed me. Nora looked proud. The preparatory work was almost done. We just had to wait to pick up the car tomorrow and wait for the end of the world. After relaxing, I started to check my emails. Suddenly, I found that Carter had sent me a document 3 days ago. After reading it, my heart sank. He said that there might be 2 types of zombie variants. One was direct mutation, that is, once bitten, one would immediately turn into a zombie. The second type was very scary. It had an incubation period. It might not mutate until 2 days later. This meant that when the zombie wave broke out, the normal people around might also be latent zombies. It was impossible to guard against. Early in the morning, the modification shop notified me to pick up the car. When inspecting the car, he mysteriously opened the car door and motioned me to look inside with his eyes. There were 10 barrels of gasoline stacked inside, and 1 barrel was about the amount of 1 fuel tank. I nodded with satisfaction and added an 8,000 yuan tip. The boss was so happy that his mouth couldn't close. Don't worry, we'll keep our mouths shut. I was speechless for a moment. In a few more days, I'm afraid there would be nowhere to spend money even if I had it. On my way back, I bought a few fire extinguishers. If these gasoline barrels were set on fire, it would be no joke. Just as I was about to lock the screen after paying, my phone received a push notification. At the real-time customs entry point in Washington, a man from Country M suddenly went crazy and bit other people. It's suspected to be rabies. I exclaimed in my heart that it was bad. This was clearly spreading over. I quickly got in the car and drove back. This person was obviously the second type of variant. He was infected in Country M and didn't show symptoms until after entering the country. It was hard not to suspect that it was a poisoning conspiracy. Outside the window, there was a lot of traffic. This sudden news didn't seem to have affected people yet, but soon, this peaceful scene would disappear completely. I sped all the way back to the air raid shelter. Nora was sticking artificial grass outside. If you didn't look carefully, it really blended in with the bushes next to it. In contrast, our place here was like a paradise. Victoria, look, I ordered it urgently. It's autumn now, so I chose the withered leaf style. When spring comes, I'll change it to green. She still had a smile on her face. While I was feeling melancholy, I quickly pulled her into the cave and blocked the entrance with the car, with the door facing inward so that we could get out and get things conveniently. She didn't seem to have seen that news and was still excited as if she were going camping. I told her seriously, Nora, it has started in Washington. The end of the world was coming soon. I took out my computer and sorted out all the known information about zombies. I also read the chat records with Carter again. Suddenly, I found that all the things he discussed with me were some ingredients that could suppress thinking ability or strengthen physical strength. I recorded all the ingredients and their corresponding effects in detail, and Nora was making dinner there. She also urgently customized a small stove. Once the charcoal was lit, it could be used as a stove. After turning off the computer, I went out to take a look. She was actually frying beef tallow. There were hand-cut beef balls and various vegetables next to it. Hot pot, spicy beef tallow hot pot. The fragrant and spicy hot pot base made my mouth water. It's nice of you to bother to prepare food. Do you still remember what Dean Lu always told us? Even if the sky falls, we have to fill our stomachs first. Most of the children in the orphanage were solitary and shy. They were always not active in eating. At this time, the dean would always tell us that no matter what, we had to eat our fill first. Only when we were full would we have the strength to live. The hot pot base gradually boiled, and the spicy smell filled the entire air raid shelter. I picked up the whole plate of beef and poured it all in. Why don't you put some vegetables in first to make a base? Nora protested. Eating hot pot means eating meat. The steam rose, and under the dim miner's lamp, we ate heartily. No one noticed that several news notifications had been pushed to the phone. Breaking news, a suspected new type of rabies virus has entered our country. Multiple cases have been found. Urgent notice, an unknown virus has appeared. Please, residents, do not go out unless necessary. 3 kilometers away at the gas station, a customer who was refueling suddenly tilted his head, his eyes rolled up, and he bit the employee who had his back to him without warning. After eating, we sorted out the garbage and temporarily placed it at the entrance of the cave. We planned to go out and throw it away during the day depending on the situation. Until now, I still didn't feel the reality of the end of the world. After everything was tidied up, we went back to the RV to get ready to sleep. The car door was modified with a device that could be locked from the inside. When locked, it couldn't be opened from the outside. In a real mess, not only zombies were scary, but also crazy humans. Before going to sleep, I checked my phone and found that the world was already in chaos. My Instagram moments were full of short videos of zombies biting people. The bitten people quickly turned into zombies. After a week like this, we were not affected. During this period, it also rained, and we collected enough rainwater. Nora prepared portable filtration equipment. After heating, it was enough for daily use. Coupled with the bottled water and barreled water we purchased, we didn't have to worry about water in the short term when we were imagining that we could probably survive like this until the zombies were eliminated. An accident happened. 3 weeks after the outbreak, we had just lain down. Suddenly, there was a strange noise outside the air raid shelter. It sounded like a fight, with the sound of biting mixed in. We held our breath and didn't dare to move. After about half an hour, it was finally quiet outside. We had installed a surveillance camera above the entrance of the cave. I quickly took out my phone to check. At this moment, there seemed to be no one outside. I checked the playback and almost dropped my phone in fright. Half an hour ago, a man was wandering around the entrance. At that time, we were still cleaning up the mess after dinner. He had been waiting, and when we quieted down, he quietly lifted the artificial grass and tried to sneak in. The next second, a zombie pounced on him and bit his neck. Then the two fought. Then, the man fell down, and the zombie staggered away. Not long after, the man also stood up with stiff limbs and left the surveillance range. During their scuffle, the artificial grass at the entrance was torn off. I'll go out and have a look. Nora turned around and was about to get out of bed. The moment she was about to unlock the door, I suddenly felt something was wrong. Stop, what's wrong? That man hasn't left yet. In the last second of the surveillance video, there was clearly a dark shadow shaking. Nora's face turned pale with fright, and she sat back on the bed, backing away. The RV almost filled the entrance. Without moving the car out first, a normal person couldn't squeeze in. The only flaw was under the car. Someone could crawl in, but the man outside had been bitten. Would he be so smart? Thinking like this, I felt a little relieved and casually wrote a note in the memo to find something to block the bottom of the car. We huddled together, trembling as we stared at the surveillance video on the phone. The bitten man was indeed still there. His body swayed from side to side, appearing and disappearing in the video. Let's just go to sleep. We don't know when he'll leave, and as more and more people get bitten, this kind of situation will only happen more frequently. We have to get used to it, I suggested. Yeah, even if he really gets into the cave, the car is so strongly reinforced that he can't get inside. Nora also agreed. When we were about to turn off our phones, the man outside suddenly looked up. A pair of empty and lifeless eyes were staring right at the surveillance camera. It scared us so much that we almost screamed, but we had to accept that this would become the norm. There would always be threats and the resulting fear. We finally lay down and forced ourselves to get used to it. I opened my Instagram moments and saw a wailing mess inside. There were unscrupulous people already selling supplies at high prices. They even demanded full payment in advance and didn't guarantee delivery. Many people were attacked by zombies on their way to pick up the goods and lost both their lives and property. The end of the world was truly fertile ground for evil. In the 4th week of holing up in the cave, we had to drive out. We needed to find some more protective materials. We need to find something to block the bottom of the car, and then it's best to find something to block the entrance. What if someone raids our home when we go out? Nora muttered in the passenger seat. I nodded in agreement. Even though we had thought a lot at that time, there were inevitably still some omissions. We came to a scrap car yard. We drove around the yard and, after making sure there was no one around, finally stopped in front of a large pile of iron sheets. Nora sat in the driver's seat and leaned out half of her body to keep watch for me. I rummaged through the pile of scrap iron. Roar. Suddenly, the sound of a zombie biting came from not far away. I immediately turned around to get into the car, but it was too late. A pair of hands stretched up from under the iron sheets and firmly gripped my ankle. These hands didn't belong to a zombie, but to a normal man. He shook off the scrap car parts covering him and leered at me. He shook his phone, and the sound of zombies was playing on it. Don't play tricks on me. Hand over whatever is in the car. The man roughly pulled me down and quickly turned over and pinned me down with his knee on my shoulder. So he was looting while taking advantage of the chaos. He picked up a large stone from the ruins and pressed it against my temple. I struggled to raise my head and winked at Nora. I was restrained, and she didn't dare to act rashly. I wanted her to run away, but the man suddenly started groping me restlessly. You look thin, but you have everything you should. I felt sick to my stomach. Brother, Nora smiled sweetly at him. I'm even more shapely than her. Do you want to give it a try? I clearly heard the man swallow hard, and the pressure of his leg on me grew even heavier. Don't play tricks, Nora. Don't come over. You go first. The man angrily slapped me and yelled at Nora. If you dare to run, I'll kill your friend. Nora winked at me and walked over with a smile. With the man's scream, the pressure of his leg on me loosened. Freed from the restraint, I quickly got up and saw the man rolling on the ground, clutching his eye. Nora proudly shook the portable fire extinguisher in her hand. It was the size of a thermos. I had just bought it on a whim and left it in the passenger seat. I didn't expect it would save my life. We quickly got in the car and left. Before leaving, I picked up a large iron sheet and stuffed it into the car. It was just right to use it to surround the bottom of the car. When passing the exit, we saw an off-road vehicle parked there. There was a big logo on the car door, the same as the tattoo pattern on the man's hand. Nora, you drive our car. I'm going to drive that man's car away. We quickly switched positions. The man's car keys were on the car, and the car was in a running state. I guess he left it like that to make it easier to escape. This car would be used as our means of transportation when we had to go out in the future. The RV would always stay at the entrance of the cave. It had truly become our home. The trunk and back seat of the car were stuffed full of supplies, a very miscellaneous assortment. It seemed that the man had been wandering around and committing crimes. Ill-gotten gains must not be kept. Every time we passed a residential area, I would throw down some supplies. From the rearview mirror, I could see that as soon as the car drove away, people hiding in the corners would rush out to pick up the supplies. I hoped they could hold out a little longer. Half a year after the zombie outbreak, finally some good news came. The country had developed a drug that could inhibit the spread of the virus once a person was bitten. The drug was airdropped at fixed points in residential areas every day. When I saw this news, my heart tightened. Wouldn't this cause an even more chaotic situation? People might get bitten while scrambling for the drug. However, the situation I was afraid of didn't occur. Before the airdrop of the drug, the situation of each residential area had been accurately locked down. Groups had been established based on this. The large groups were further subdivided into small groups. Group leaders were elected among the groups, and they arranged schedules. After the drug was airdropped, people went downstairs to pick it up in order. One person picked up the drug while another escorted each person got one share, and no one took more. In this chaotic world, humans were saving themselves in an orderly manner. On the contrary, we were in trouble, because we weren't in a residential area. We couldn't get the airdrop drug. Fortunately, the country had considered this situation and also carried out airdrops in places where there weren't many zombies. However, we had to find a way to pick it up ourselves. I dug out my fishing rod from the RV, wrapped a large hook with wire, practiced a few times, and then we set off for the airdrop point. There was no scene of people scrambling as I had expected. There was no one at the airdrop point, only a few lonely packs of medicine to be on the safe side. I still followed my original plan and didn't get out of the car. Instead, I opened the sunroof, climbed out, and used the fishing rod to hook the medicine outside like fishing. The car was running. If there was any situation, Nora would drive it away immediately. However, every precaution still has a loophole. I didn't expect a zombie to fall from a tree. It was only one step away from me. I quickly climbed back into the car and frantically pressed the window closing button. The thing's arm had already reached in and was waving around aimlessly in the air. We screamed and frantically picked up the backpacks beside us and hit the withered arm. However, it was no use. It was extremely strong, and the gap of the sunroof was being forced wider and wider. I remembered that there was a machete I had bought before under the seat. I quickly dug it out and chopped at the arm with all my might. The desire to survive made me use all my strength, and I chopped off its arm in 3 or 5 strokes. However, it still clung to the roof of the car and didn't leave. Carter had said that we had to attack their brains to be effective. Victoria, sit tight. Nora suddenly accelerated and then slammed on the brakes. We were thrown around in the car. The zombie on the roof also fell off due to inertia. Fortunately, the medicine pack I had hooked just now was still floating steadily outside the car. I carefully reeled it in. I hoped we would never have to use it. It wasn't until we got back to the cave and lay down again that my heart, which had been hanging in the air, finally settled. I felt as if all my strength had been drained. I lay there groggy for a long time before regaining some energy. Nora brought in 2 bowls of instant noodles. I slurped mine while sorting out the latest zombie information I had collected. After sorting it out, I browsed the web, wanting to see if I could find some tutorials on making homemade weapons. The air raid shelter couldn't be a permanent utopia. We had to be ready to fight back at any time. A push notification was accidentally clicked open by me. The country had publicized an email address to collect all clues related to zombies. I thought of the chat records with Carter before I sent the useful chat records and the recent zombie information I had recorded over. I was sitting in the off-road vehicle we had obtained earlier, parked outside the air raid shelter, scanning the surroundings. Nora was nimbly replacing the artificial grass at the entrance. The yellowish-brown one was being taken off and replaced with a green one. It had been 2 years since the zombie outbreak. It was completely different from the beginning. The air raid shelter was becoming increasingly empty. In at most 1 more month, our food would be gone. The zombie virus had broken out all over the world. Most countries had chosen to use force to kill the infected people. Only our country had chosen to do its best to shelter the infected. All major scientific research institutions were working non-stop to develop drugs. Everyone was looking forward to the day when those who had been bitten could recover. Crack, a zombie with its head hanging down walked towards us. Nora glanced up and then continued to arrange the grass. I also calmly reached my hand to the back seat and opened the car door. When the last side was glued on, she nimbly jumped onto the car and closed the door firmly. I opened the car window and threw a beer bottle into the distance. The zombie immediately turned around and walked towards the beer bottle. The latest research showed that these fully zombified people had no hope of being cured, and they were especially sensitive to harsh sounds. The beer bottles were originally collected by me with great effort, intending to make crude explosives, but it turned out that they posed no threat to zombies. Now they could only be used to make a noise to distract them. During this long ordeal, we had become numb and indifferent to the terrible situation. That day, Nora and I were taking inventory of the supplies in the air raid shelter. We had to reduce our daily food intake to delay the depletion of food as much as possible. My phone suddenly vibrated. A strange number was calling in. We looked at each other in surprise. After the zombie outbreak, not even telecom fraudsters would call. Why was it ringing now? Victoria, hello. I'm Charles, the director of the National Zombie Virus Research Center. As director, Charles introduced himself further. I finally remembered that more than a year ago, I had sent an email. He said that the information I provided was very valuable. We understand that you majored in biochemistry and have detailed records and research on this virus. Therefore, we hope you can join our team. After hanging up the phone, my excitement gradually subsided. Back then, I had entered the Research Institute as the top student in my major, but the research quota was snatched away by the daughter of a professor. Since then, I had been engaged in administrative work. My actual research work had been forced to stop. I didn't have the confidence to participate in a project that was crucial to the survival of all mankind. That night, I tossed and turned. Around midnight, Nora's phone rang. I don't know what was said on the other end, but there was a sob in her voice. Victoria, my dad was bitten too. He's been taken to the shelter. When she came to Washington to find me, she had forced her family to make preparations, so over the years, her family had been safe, but that day, Uncle Chin had been bitten while trying to save an infected employee. Seeing Nora's panicked look, my heart ached. No one could escape this disaster. What was even more unfortunate was that a large number of deaths had begun to occur among the infected in the shelter. Eliminating this terrifying virus had become extremely urgent. Early the next morning, we stuffed the remaining supplies into the RV and set off for the research center. The research center would take care of our food, clothing, housing, and transportation. We left the supplies in the RV along the way in residential areas. Many people were no longer hiding at home like at the beginning, but were bravely going out to search for food and supplies. Going out didn't necessarily mean being bitten to death by zombies, but staying at home any longer would surely mean starving to death. When we arrived at the research center, Nora was arranged to stay in the family building. I was taken by Director Charles to the laboratory. On the way, he told me that the institute had obtained an infected person from Country M. He carried the original strain of the virus. They were using him as the research object to develop an antidote. After Director Charles explained the latest research progress to me, he took me to see the infected person. We tested his blood and found complex drug residue components. We suspect that he was an experimental subject in Country M before. How did you bring him here? He was about to be transported away as medical waste and burned. Our colleagues stationed abroad discovered him and saved him. Director Charles sighed again and said, recently, a large number of infected people have died. I don't know if he can hold on. As soon as he finished speaking, the door in front of us was opened. A room like a cage appeared in front of me. A man in a hospital gown was huddled in the corner, growling softly. I walked towards him nervously. He suddenly looked up and pounced on me. I was stunned and froze on the spot. Carter, obviously. He couldn't understand my call. I looked at Carter, who was imprisoned and walking like a dead man. Frowning, Director Charles beside me pressed the remote control in his hand, and Carter was immediately pinned to the wall like a piece of meat on a chopping board, spread-eagled. His wrists and ankles were shackled. I walked in and observed him carefully. He has a lot of Greek letters and times engraved on his arm. The times are basically around the first outbreak of zombies, but we haven't deciphered what the letters mean, Director Charles said as he rolled up his sleeve. I took a look and understood. Perhaps he injected the drugs into himself. These letters were the ingredient codes specially compiled by our professor. I guessed that after Carter was bitten, while he was still conscious, he used himself to test the antidote. The first injection time was 5 minutes after he sent the video. The whole record only lasted less than 48 hours. After he got sick, it was interrupted. I quickly recorded all the ingredients. This was the research data he had obtained at the cost of himself. The laboratory here was huge. All the top experts in the country had gathered here. Everyone was fighting a desperate battle against this disaster. We had a meeting with relevant departments. Preliminary research had verified that due to different innate constitutions and genes, some people would get sick and die shortly after being infected, while some others would survive as zombies without consciousness or metabolism, like Carter. But whether they were alive or dead, their central nervous systems had been damaged and could never return to normal. This damage was irreversible. Hearing this, I was shocked. Then why were we still sheltering those clearly infected people? It was a huge waste of energy and financial resources, because all policies are people-oriented. After the meeting, Director Charles heard my doubts and explained with a smile, for us, those in the shelter are just living corpses, but for their families, they are their dearest and closest people. Even if they are just walking corpses, it's better than disappearing completely from this world. This also gives hope to those who are still alive. What's more, what if in a few years, the technology really develops to the point where they can be brought back to life? I understood and felt ashamed of my short-sightedness. Research showed that within 24 hours after a normal human was bitten, their central nervous system would be completely destroyed. What we had to do was race against time and nip the zombie virus in the bud before it completely devoured normal humans. The data engraved on Carter's arm undoubtedly saved us a lot of time. I worked day and night with other top experts on experiments and researched. Several ingredients had been included in the list of effective virus inhibitors, but now we faced a problem. We lacked clinical trial subjects. Many people were unwilling to report immediately when they were bitten, fearing that they would never come back, so most of the people in the shelter had been infected for more than 24 hours and had no experimental value. The few newly infected people who were willing to be experimental subjects were far from enough to meet the experimental needs. I'll do it. At the discussion meeting, an old professor with gray hair stood up. He wanted to be infected voluntarily. His proposal was rejected. This kind of suicidal experiment was like drinking poison to quench thirst. The old professor left angrily. However, 10 minutes later, we received his 10 mass email. Cage no. 3. Everyone looked at each other in surprise. I immediately realized what was going on and rushed towards room 3. Professor David had tied himself up, and his eyes were glazed over. Obviously, he had already been infected. Other experts also rushed over one after another, looking shocked. Dear teachers, let's respect Professor David's wishes, I said with a choked voice. Everyone had a sad look on their faces, but they still started injecting various reagents into Professor David in an orderly manner, but reality didn't go as we hoped. All the ingredients on the effective list failed. Professor David and Carter were locked up in the cage together as experimental subjects. The others could only quickly pull themselves together and throw themselves into a new round of experiments. Fortunately, after Professor David's story was posted online, many people said that if they were infected, they would be willing to be experimental subjects. However, the time limit that the infected people must be within 24 hours was still a difficult problem. All the currently eligible infected people participated, but we still hadn't screened out the key effective ingredients. We were just one step away. Based on the existing data, we improved the parameters and were about to conduct a new round of experiments when there was a shortage of experimental subjects again. This time, every expert said they were willing to be infected voluntarily, including me. I lost my parents when I was young and have no one to worry about in this world. You are all different. You have old people to support and children to take care of, so let me do it this time. Director Charles shook his head. The world has already owed you so much, we can't add to that. Everyone argued and couldn't reach an agreement. Finally, we decided to draw lots. The one who was drawn was Director Charles. Victoria, when this disaster is over, tell my daughter that her father participated in saving mankind. Before entering the experimental subject detention area, he said to me, keep these words and tell her yourself when you get out. 24 hours later, the third reagent injected into Director Charles's body had a reaction. He regained obvious self-awareness. He also responded to our words. Normal metabolism was restored. Later, he could have a slow conversation. It was only a matter of time before everything returned to normal. The relevant drugs were immediately put into production and distributed across the country. A week later, the load on the shelter was getting lower and lower. Half a year later, the latest news was broadcast on the news. The zombie virus has been completely eliminated. It was over, but some things could never be erased. For example, the infected person shelter. As long as there was still one infected person alive, it would exist. Family members would visit these infected people with lost consciousness regularly, like visiting patients or prisoners. They were witnesses to that terrifying era. When manpower and resources were freed up, various researches became more abundant. For example, we also discovered that when certain physical function parameters of the infected person dropped to a certain value, it meant that they didn't have much time left. But Carter was an exception. All the parameters showed that he couldn't survive for long, but he had always been in that small space, not struggling, breathing slowly, until I applied to the state to bring his parents back to China. The moment the two elderly people, who had been tortured and looked haggard, landed, I received a message from the research center. Carter has no vital signs. Outside the arrival hall, the sun was shining brightly. It had only been a little over a month since the disaster ended. Everything seemed as if it had never happened. People were busy moving around like ants. Get in the car, Victoria. Nora was waiting in our RV. The protective nets on the vehicle body and the anti-peeping films on the glass had been removed. The clear scratches on the outside showed that it had fought through a tough time. Story 2. In my past life, I set free the mermaid my brother had captured. Yet the mermaid believed my brother would keep his promise to care for her forever, and willingly beached herself to return to captivity. My brother, suffering from manic episodes, killed me in a fit of rage. She even had him dump my body into the sea as fish food. After being reborn, I resolved to watch coldly from the sidelines. I watched as my brother turned her into sashimi. My brother found a beached mermaid by the shore. The mermaid was stunningly beautiful, with deep blue eyes like the ocean that seemed to pull you into their depths, yet her nature remained utterly innocent. She would sing me the songs of her people at night, and sometimes hold my calloused hands, telling me I worked too hard. I couldn't bear to watch my brother kill her that day, so while he slept, I released her into the sea to send her home, yet she cried out with such piercing sorrow. When my brother came running at the sound, she leapt ashore to his side without hesitation, as resolute as a carp vaulting the Dragon Gate. 1. The mermaid returned to the aquarium my brother kept in the kitchen, but in his manic episode, he killed me, eager to make a Good impression on my brother. The mermaid floated in the tank with her tiny fists clenched. Throw her into the sea for shark food. I told you I'm never going back to the ocean. Before the excruciating pain of my organs being shredded could fully fade, I realized I'd been reborn. My brother came back dragging an enormous fish tank, his face beaming with excitement, the container covered by a thick black cloth. Tow. Guess what I caught this time? What is it? I knew it without guessing. It's that mermaid. My brother mysteriously drew all the curtains before unveiling the black cloth, revealing a dying mermaid lying beneath. Her hair flowed like seaweed, and her tail bore a clear blunt force wound. This is something no one in our town, perhaps the entire world, has ever seen before. My brother was so excited he seemed almost delirious. I understood what he meant. We grew up parentless in this borderland town. 2 kids with no means to support ourselves. Ostracism and isolation became our daily reality. No wonder he's thrilled. He's finally found something that'll make everyone see him in a new light. The mermaid awoke, blinking her luminous eyes at us in bewilderment. Who are you? I found you passed out on the beach and brought you here. I'm Kai. What's your name? Just like in our past life, my brother asked with a gentle smile playing on his lips. My name is Aloan. Aloan was too naive to distinguish between genuine kindness and human pretense. She believed him completely when he simply held her hand, called her beautiful, and promised to care for her forever. Back then, I adored Aloan too, showing her our human customs, telling her stories about our world. I even told her that my brother only kept her around to eat fish. There's no saving those hellbent on destruction. I shouldn't have spoken up or thought I could save anyone. I still remember how Aloan immediately reported everything I said to my brother afterward. My brother was so furious he beat me up. That beating left me badly injured. I was bedridden for 2 days without eating. These days I can't be bothered with Aloan, just living the same routine as always, but all I can do is ignore her as much as possible. Our place is just too cramped. Aloan tried making conversation while eyeing the noodles in my bowl with curiosity. Tao, what are you eating? Is it good? In my past life I would have shared with her without hesitation, but now I just scooted away slightly, my tone frosty. Nothing special. My aloofness did nothing to dampen Aloan's enthusiasm. She always tries to talk to me since my brother's rarely home. Whenever he returns, he brings her snacks and sometimes accessories like hair clips or necklaces. Aloan happily dolled herself up and even asked if I could buy her more makeup. I want Kai to see the prettier version of me. She spoke with coy hesitation. Is this how women act when they're in love? Or is it just mermaids being like this? I turned her down, resolved to avoid any further interaction with her. Today my brother plucked a few of her scales, planning to show them off at the market. Her face twisted in pain, yet she let her brother pull it out, having gotten his way. Her brother wrapped his arms around her and kissed her forehead. Thank you, darling. You're the only one who truly understands me. Maybe one day we'll have a fairy tale wedding with fireworks lighting up the sky. Aloan's face was radiant with joy and happiness. I stood by as an extra in the background. My brother told Aloan that mermaid scales could fetch a fortune, so we'd all have food to eat. It was my idea. I insisted he pluck those scales. To my surprise, Aloan actually believed it. The way she looked at me turned icy. Her gullibility played right into my hands, exactly as I'd anticipated. My brother and I barely scraped by doing odd jobs as adults, though we often got shortchanged. At least we didn't have to survive on scavenged vegetable scraps and leftovers. Later, we saved enough to qualify for overseas work, finally freeing us from constant hunger. He knew I'd disrupt his plans and develop sympathy for Aloan. He guessed wrong. I'll never play the bleeding heart fool again. I'll never forget how dead serious Aloan looked when she told her brother to throw me into the sea. At the marketplace, everyone was fascinated by the scales her brother had brought. A well-traveled man marveled at the aurora-colored fish scales in awe. What creature did you take these from? I've never seen any this large before. My brother relishes being the center of attention, with everyone listening intently to his words. Encountered it at sea. That beast was enormous, with a tail like a ship's sail. I focus on gutting the fish. I clean and dry the fish he catches, then the town merchants collect them to sell wholesale. I've been gutting fish with a knife since I could walk, quick and clean, leaving nothing behind. My brother made sure Aloan peeked through the kitchen window to watch me work. Aloan scowled as I dispatched fish with single practice strokes. Barbaric. I straightened up and saw my brother's satisfied expression, feeling utterly speechless. Bro, there's no need for this. I couldn't care less whether she lives or dies. Of course my brother didn't believe me. He just chuckled without saying a word. Ever since Aloan saw me gutting fish, she's been keeping her guard up around me. Whenever I cook in the kitchen, she'd sink to the bottom of the aquarium and stare intently at my movements. The moment I pick up a knife, she opens her mouth, ready to call for my brother to stop me from murdering her. My brother often tells her bedtime stories, tucks her in, wakes her up, and they even feed each other. This bizarre human-fish relationship somehow mirrors marital bliss. But would Aloan still wear that blissful smile if she knew my brother was mentally drafting recipes when I was selling dried fish? A local bully kept staring at me. Hey Tao, got something shady hidden at your place? The bully leered with a creepy grin. No, where'd you hear that? I instinctively denied it outright. The bully just gave me a knowing look without saying much. Even after being reborn, I still don't know how he picked up the trail. I only remember him breaking into my house late that night to keep Aloan hidden. I stood guard at the kitchen doorway confronting the bully, nearly risking my life. Back then, Aloan was too busy burying herself in her brother's arms as he rushed home, while I sat in the living room bandaging the knife wound inflicted by the bully. I should have seen the signs back then. I won't stick my nose where it doesn't belong this time. That very night, the bully showed up just as expected. The brute constantly bullied people around town, relying on his hulking frame. With his uncle being the deputy mayor, folks could do nothing but steer clear of him. The walls in my room are paper thin. I can hear his footsteps pacing in the living room. My brother's out fishing. His boat should have just docked by now. He'll be home in about 10 minutes. The thug ransacked every room in my house until he finally forced open the kitchen door. After a splashing sound in the water, I heard Aloan's wary voice. The bully looked both shocked and thrilled. Holy crap, it really is a mermaid. Are you for real? Get away, don't touch me. Ah, Aloan shrieked, thrashing in the water with increasing frenzy. I lay motionless in my room, entertaining dark thoughts. If only he'd just get rid of that troublemaker Aloan right now. But my brother returned surprisingly fast, just in time to see the bully trying to drag Aloan away. In desperation, my brother grabbed the harpoon by the door and fought him through the paper-thin door. I could hear Aloan crashing to the floor and the sickening sound of the sharp prongs piercing flesh. Aloan's initial terrified screams gradually faded into silence along with the entire surroundings. My brother panted heavily, sounding almost disbelieving. Is he dead? Aloan answered guiltily. Though my brother's tone was gentle. Having lived with him day and night, I could detect the underlying savagery and excitement. I just saw your tail fin strike him and he died instantly. Is your caudal fin venomous? But my parents taught me not to use venom recklessly. Still, protecting you is what I must do. So mermaids are actually poisonous. Brother couldn't contain his excitement. Does that mean anyone who hurts you will get poisoned? Then I don't have to worry about your safety anymore? Exactly, my whole body is toxic. Even predators trying to eat me would die from poisoning. Unaware of her brother's unusual behavior, Aloan revealed her hidden trump card to him. She even volunteered that drinking her blood was the antidote. Then the two began their sweet, intimate moments together, tossing and turning in bed. I couldn't sleep knowing someone had died in my house, while also pondering what path to take next. My brother hasn't had much luck with his recent fishing trips. He tries to maintain his gentlemanly demeanor around Aloan, but secretly vents his frustration by smashing things behind his back. I quickly found a new job. There's a seafood shop at the market hiring staff, too afraid to stay home. I'd come by every day. The moment the shop owner posted the hiring notice, I applied. I can fillet fish with effortless precision and handle all kinds of shellfish with practiced ease. The boss lady was quite pleased with me, praising how little trouble I caused, given our past troubles with bullies. My brother was extremely cautious about Aloan's presence. Fortunately, our remote location meant few visitors. He had no time for me, completely preoccupied with spoiling Aloan, making trips to town just to buy her favorite cakes and biscuits. He wanted to fatten the fish, but the fish simply felt deeply loved. It's peak travel season now, with many out-of-towners vacationing by the sea. Apart from the distant clouds over the beach, there's not much scenery here, just budget travelers or those seeking off-the-beaten-path spots. I arrived even earlier than my already 2-hour advanced work schedule. A rush of customers had just arrived that morning, and the boss's wife was frantically cleaning fish when she spotted me, both surprised and delighted. Tao, why are you here so early again today? My brother woke up, so I headed out, I said calmly, taking the knife from her hand. Only then did she find time to help the boss who'd been working the walk so hard it was smoking. She wiped the sweat from her brow, a flicker of compassion in her eyes. Sigh, your brother really, you're his only flesh and blood. You'd think he'd take better care of you. I shook my head without responding. I rushed out the door as soon as my brother woke up, wanting to avoid any arguments, not that I could win a fight against him anyway. As for Aloan, she quickly picked up on my brother's dejection and even offered to help lure prey from the sea for him. Of course, my brother wouldn't let her leave the kitchen fish tank. I made an extra $50 in tips today, which I left with the landlady along with most of my earnings from these past few days. The small portion I brought back was mostly used by my brother to buy things for Aloan. Tao, what are you saving this money for? The shopkeeper helped me put the money away and casually asked, anywhere would do, just leave this place, go somewhere with real Tao trees. My mom gave me this name. I've only eaten Tao 3 Times sweet and crispy. The shop owner's wife turned away and wiped her eyes. When I got home, there were two strangers at my doorstep. They were town detectives. The local bully had been missing for ages without any leads, so his uncle, the deputy mayor, hired investigators who eventually traced the case to our family. Only people like them could afford to hire detectives. Their expression suggested they hadn't spotted Aloan. When I entered, the aquarium only held a few seashells. After turning the house upside down without finding any clues, the detectives left. Several hours after their departure, my brother finally wheeled the aquarium to the beach behind our house. Tao, help me push the cart. We need to bring Aloan back. I was surprised that my brother had Aloan temporarily returned to the sea to evade the detectives. When we reached the shore, there was no sign of the mermaid. I didn't even need to glance sideways to know my brother must be furious right now. His fists were clenched, his entire body trembling uncontrollably. Aloan, where are you? The shoreline lay silent, answering him only with the occasional cresting wave. After searching the beach for an hour, the brother finally stopped and drove his fist into the sand. The yielding grains absorbed the blow with gentle resistance, leaving his knuckles flushed crimson. Damn it, if I ever see her again, I'll make her pay, he growled through clenched teeth. Meanwhile, in the ocean's depths, Aloan seemed to sense something and angrily shook off her sister's hand. I can feel it. Kai's looking for me. He must be frantic right now, happy now that you've torn us apart. Her sister Maris took a deep breath. We're not even the same species as humans. How could he possibly truly love you? Aloan was too deeply in love to hear any of this. She stood with her arms crossed, sulking. That's exactly why I said your perspective is shallow, ignorant, and narrow-minded. Say whatever you want, but come home with me now. Don't you know Mom and Dad have been worried sick since you disappeared? I'm not going back. Aloan struggled desperately. My whole life I've had to follow your orders. This time I choose for myself. Maris underestimated her resolve and nearly lost his grip on her, but Aloan was forcibly dragged back to her oceanic domain and imprisoned. Maris sighed helplessly at her sister, whose vision remained completely obscured within the cage. Stay here and clear your head first. You can go back to see Mom and Dad when you've come to your senses. You're just jealous. I can feel how desperately Kai's searching for me right now. Look, he's even made me put on weight. Aloan ran her hands over her arms and rounded tail fin, lost in sweet reminiscence. Then Maris interrupted. How do you know he doesn't want to eat you? He would never eat me. On the shore, my brother went home for a quick meal, then stubbornly came back out to keep searching. I could see his figure from the back window of our house. Suddenly, fireworks exploded across the night sky. Though called fireworks, they resembled dazzling auroras, rising from the sea into the heavens, their colors shifting for several mesmerizing seconds. My brother never even glanced up, scanning the shoreline with desperate intensity, determined not to miss any chance of finding Aloan. Kai, a familiar voice rang out as Aloan unexpectedly leaped from the sea. Her brother immediately reached out to embrace her. Kneeling on the shore with tears of joy, was that fireworks you just set off, darling? They were breathtaking. Yes, I used my scales to create them. Magnificent, aren't they? Aloan flicked her fishtail with pride, noticing her damaged scales. Her brother anxiously carried her home in a hurry. When they returned, I overheard Aloan urging her brother to capture her sister too. It was Maris who took me away. Luckily I managed to escape. Who knows how long it would have been before we saw each other again. Aloan's eyes welled up with tears as she reached the painful part of her story. Who are you? Her brother patted her head with tender affection in his voice. All right, I'll make sure to bring her back to apologize to you. Just wait for me. I sat in the living room contemplating my departure. Aloan stayed in the kitchen fish tank as if it were her real home. Tao, your brother adores me. You're not jealous, are you? I nearly burst out laughing when I heard that. Jealous? I couldn't be happier about it. Aloan's intel was spot on. Her brother actually went and captured her sister. 2. Watching her sister suffer because of her, Aloan could only beam with pride at her partner's masterful fishing skills. See, Maris, I told you my beloved was extraordinary. Maris was too furious to speak, her body covered in wounds. My brother gazed proudly at his creation before bossing me around again. Tao, go fetch a larger fish tank. The desire to leave struck me at that very moment. I'm done taking orders. It's time to follow my own voice. In the dead of night, I heard rhythmic tapping sounds, deliberately muffled to near silence. I'm hypersensitive to noise. The slightest unnatural sound keeps me wide awake. Wrapping my robe around me, I found Maris in the living room tapping away with exaggerated caution. She bit her lip nervously when she noticed me. Could you help me? I govern this stretch of ocean. Without me, the fish would be easy prey. She trailed off. Realizing her words contradicted human intentions, I studied her with curiosity. Apparently, not all mermaids are created Maris seemed much more composed, still trying to reason with Aloan even while trapped in the fish tank. It's truly pitiful how far she's been dragged into this mess. Maris sank dejectedly to the bottom of the tank as I gently tapped the glass with my finger. I can save you, really, name your price. I can give you anything, moon pearls, gold, diamonds, or pearls. Maris perked up instantly. Though she remembered to keep it low-key and avoided making a scene, I reached out my hand to her. Come on, I'll carry you to the shore. I carried Aloan to the beach like this before too, though I had to drag her there against her will. She screamed and squirmed the whole way there. Maris was much more cooperative, her cool body curled motionless in my arms, but I still managed to make some noise when we left. The sound of the door slamming woke Aloan. When she opened her eyes and saw me leaving with Maris, she immediately started frantically tapping on the fish tank. Kai, she's escaping, Kai. My brother's neurasthenia was quite severe. He woke up instantly from the commotion. He runs faster than me. Just before he could catch up, Maris and I dashed into the sea. The water was Maris' domain. With a gentle flick of her tail, she effortlessly propelled me back to the surface. My brother stood on the shore watching us from afar, his eyes dark and brooding. Tao, do you have a death wish? Then kill me. I know you've always wanted to. I was furious too, though I brought this on myself by being reckless and insisting on saving Aloan, but it was my own brother who struck the final blow. We stood in stalemate like that for a full half hour, until my brother finally turned back first under Maris' worried gaze. I eventually retreated as well. Before leaving, Maris kissed my forehead in gratitude. Thank you, I truly don't know how to repay you. Should you ever visit my stretch of the sea, I'll have every fish salute you in honor, don't mention it. No worries, he won't do anything to me. Once my brother cools down, he won't take it out on me anymore. He still needs me to help get the fish. Besides, my luggage is still at home. I want to take it with me. All right, you're a good person. Our merfolk clan consents when one of us dies. You should leave this town as soon as possible. After all, my sister's been spoiled rotten by our parents. If anything happens to her, they'd raise hell. Maris looked at me with concern. So that's how it works. Serves them right. What goes around comes around. Only after watching me walk away did Maris finally turn and descend back into the ocean depths. When I returned, I saw my brother violently kicking the fish tank. How could you let your sister escape? Was this deliberate? You never intended for me to catch her, did you? Are you playing games with me? He glared at Aloan, gripping the edges of the fish tank with both hands, barely restraining himself from lashing out. I'm sorry. This is all my fault. Aloan burst into tears from fright. Seeing this, her brother pinched his own thigh again to suppress his rising temper. It's not your fault, I'm the useless one. No, it's my fault. Go ahead and scold me if you want. Aloan threw herself into her brother's arms, weeping like a rain-soaked pear blossom, stroking her plump mermaid tail. Her brother's face twisted into a sickly smile. He noticed my return, called out to me, then shut the kitchen door. Tao, I'm planning to invite the mayor over for a sashimi feast in a couple days. Everyone will be in awe of me then. Those who look down on us will have no choice but to worship us. My brother was acting rather unhinged, but he cut me off just as I tried to reason with him. Do you remember when you were 8, burning with fever? I carried you on my back, begging the doctors to save you. They called us worthless trash who couldn't even catch a snapper, said you weren't worth saving. Then my first time fishing with them, their nets tangled, so they threw me overboard to face the raging waves. Told them my life wasn't worth mourning. All I got in the end was one lousy sardine, our stolen home, the money they took, every humiliation we suffered, all because I was nobody. As he spoke, a light flickered in his eyes, one I'd never seen before. Just wait, I'll make them eat their words soon enough. Seeing him stuck in his stubborn mindset, I tried to talk him out of it. Bro, we've got the means now, nobody can push us around anymore. We could totally start fresh somewhere else. Didn't you always say you wanted to try Tao's peaches and apricots? There. Opinions don't mean a damn thing. Their narrow-mindedness is their own problem. My brother frowned as he listened to me. The fact he wasn't angry meant he was seriously considering my words. A new place. Where could we possibly go? Plenty of options. Customers told me even shoe-shining stands make good money where they're from. I'm utterly enchanted by the scenes those travelers described to me. Bone-dry pristine streets. Ladies gliding past in high heels and sweeping gowns, accompanied by gentlemen of refined bearing. God knows which part Maris overheard from the kitchen, but she suddenly raised her voice in displeasure to argue with me. Why would you tear Kai away from the only home he's ever known? That's completely wrong. Such cowardly thinking. I spent ages trying to reason with my brother, and just like that, Aloan's few words completely turned him to the dark side. She's right, Tao, save your breath. Don't question my decisions anymore. As he spoke, he reverted to his old Self, I never expected to change his mind with just a few words, but he's even more stubborn than I thought. I won't bring it up again. The car is all set. I'm about to pull off my secret runaway plan. With my brother constantly around these days, sneaking my luggage out under his nose isn't easy. I'll have to take it slow, just moving small bits each day, stashing them with the shopkeeper's wife. She's decent enough, at least when I'm useful to her business. Brother was preparing a seafood feast. At home, unaware she was the main course, Aloan kept asking if this was their wedding banquet. He lied and said yes. I gave it some thought. She spent every day happily talking to herself. They even unilaterally made peace with me. Tao, we're family now. I apologize for how I treated you before. Whatever. I couldn't be bothered to engage with her. Aloan didn't mind my attitude, eagerly awaiting the day of the banquet with pure delight. These past few days, my brother had delivered invitations to every household in town. Sometimes when he was busy sharpening knives or preparing banquet tables, I'd help with the deliveries. Tao, you and your brother are actually hosting a banquet. You two have really made something of yourselves. Is this banquet really just serving us two measly fish slices? We've tasted every kind of fish there is. Don't even think about pulling a fast one on us. Most of the crowd remained skeptical. I simply flashed a knowing smile. My brother caught a creature none of you have ever seen before. Hardly anyone believes that. Quit the suspense. What could that kid possibly do? In all my years, there's no fish I haven't tasted, even if it's beneath them, who could turn down a free meal. So everyone accepted the invitation. A strange sense of relief washed over me. Those memories my brother mentioned were like thorns in my heart too. As a child, I cleaned fish and mended nets for a market vendor just to earn a meal. After working all day for him, he wouldn't even spare me a tin of food. Oh, he said nobody would back me up, that no one could handle these matters, and even threatened to gouge my eyes out if I kept glaring at him. Back home, I lied to my brother, telling him I'd found a nice beach and slept there all day. He didn't blame me, admitting he'd been slacking off too. We both chose to ignore each other's waterlogged, shriveled fingers. As for his mania, growing up always comes with losing something. I've already died once before. I feel no attachment to anything in this town. The day of the banquet arrived as scheduled. My brother said the fish scales he'd shown everyone earlier came from this catch, the main ingredient. Even the town mayor showed up. He was also curious about what kind of creature could have scales that large. If that fish of yours is really that big, we could skewer it for barbecue. Whatever's left can go to the homeless, the mayor said with a laugh. Everyone chimed in, praising him for his clever idea. The crowd fell completely silent when her brother wheeled Aloan out on the cart. She's absolutely stunning. Is this the legendary mermaid we've heard about? Someone was staring at her with curiosity. Yes, I'll be preparing sashimi for everyone next. Please keep your hands to yourselves. My brother immediately slapped away a curious hand reaching out. I was already in the departing car by then. 5. The innkeeper who arranged my ride held my hand with visible reluctance. You must come back to visit when you have time. Yeah, I'll be back, I finished with a smile, then turned away and sat in the car, my expression turning cold again. I'm never coming back, not ever returning to this godforsaken place. Under the expectant gazes of everyone, her brother methodically plucked Aloan's scales one by one with pliers. When the pain jolted her awake, she found herself strapped to the dining table, surrounded by hungry eyes watching her every move. Her beloved stood over her with a knife, carving into her flesh the very knife she'd sharpened for him just days before. Kai, Aloan opened her mouth to call out, but found her voice completely failing her. The people waiting to eat fish noticed her movement. She's actually awake. Can she even speak? Her brother cast her an indifferent glance, all former tenderness gone. It's just a fish. How could it possibly talk? To prevent anyone from accidentally drinking Aloan's blood and being cured, her brother drained it first, though not completely drained. After losing most of her blood, she lacked the strength to struggle and collapsed weakly onto the table. The first few slices of meat were distributed to the town mayor. After feigning restraint while placing the fish slice in his mouth, his eyes lit up, tender and delicious. Give me a few more slices. His greedy demeanor left those who hadn't gotten any fish slices rather displeased, but since he was the town mayor, nobody dared to speak up. The elder brother smiled gently. No need to rush. I'll make sure everyone gets their fair share in turn. The poison must be evenly distributed, otherwise some would die while others survive. The mayor, thoroughly enjoying the meal, urged his secretary to fetch fine wine for everyone. The secretary rushed back without delay to get the wine. The eldest brother received the first cup, took a sip, and smiled in satisfaction. Our chef deserves the first toast. After the mayor spoke, everyone's attitude toward my brother changed completely. I always knew Kai would be the most successful of the bunch. He's the best sailor every time we go out. I always want him on my crew. They were saying things that completely contradicted their actions, but it didn't matter. They now treated my brother with deference beyond them. Even more townsfolk had come running upon hearing the news. Aloan was by far the most despairing of all, drained of blood. She lacked the strength to resist, yet couldn't die. She could only watch helplessly as she indirectly caused so many deaths. Her lover carved her flesh slice by slice with a knife, even consuming some himself, whether from rage or prolonged dehydration. Aloan's mind grew foggy, consumed by grief. Suddenly it dawned on her that she could still turn to her parents for help. If they summoned a tsunami to engulf the entire town, she'd regain her freedom of movement and could return home. The people at the table, and those standing by waiting to eat the fish, they all watched curiously as Aloan threw back her head and let out a piercing scream. They couldn't understand the mermaid's voice. The mayor watched Aloan's pained expression with growing fascination. She's actually crying. This fish can shed tears. Now Aloan truly understood fear. She finally realized how terribly wrong her actions were. Not only did she walk right into the trap herself, she nearly got her sister killed. Now that her sister has returned to the sea, she must have told their parents everything. They must be utterly disappointed in her. They won't come to save her now. Aloan lay on the table weeping faintly, her tears lending the fish meat an unexpected hint of flavor. Kai, could you share with us how you caught this mermaid? The older brother smiled with narrowed eyes. Sure, no problem. The sea was particularly rough that day. He spun a random tale, yet everyone at the table was completely captivated. With such an extraordinary experience, you really ought to write a book. Absolutely. This is simply incredible. The group chimed in with enthusiastic comments. His voice gradually trailed off as he spoke. The first to collapse was the town mayor, who had gorged on fish slices and downed copious amounts of liquor. Everyone just assumed he was drunk, laughing and teasing him about his low alcohol tolerance. Then, more and more people began dropping like flies. The massive dining table stood at our doorstep, in that seldom visited place, now littered with corpses. Aloan watched helplessly as her brother's face turned deathly pale. He wouldn't last much longer. Tears welled in her eyes as she whispered to him. Why? Her brother gently stroked her cheek. Why? Perhaps because killing you would benefit me more than marrying you ever could. Only bones remained where Aloan's fishtail had been. Trembling, she watched as her brother collapsed too. Everyone is dead. Her head grew dizzier. She was dying too. My brother actually eavesdropped on my conversation with Maris. He knew a mermaid's death would trigger a tsunami, so he'd made peace with death. Tasting mermaid flesh before dying would make it worthwhile. The tsunami never came. Instead, there was a bizarre mermaid murder case. They discovered a table full of corpses, including a human torso with fish bones. Some suspected the massive fish skeleton had been stitched on. No, some believe it was a genuine mermaid. I traveled by bus to a landlocked southern city where the locals carried themselves with refined grace, their manners gentle and poised, a stark contrast to those I'd known. I started by selling newspapers, then flowers, and eventually saved enough to set up a fish stall in the market. My stall gained regular customers because I prepared the cleanest fish in the market. This pays way more than shark fishing by the shore. I thought the tsunami had already wiped out that coastal town. A year later, I finally got that call from the shop owner lady. Tao, how's life treating you out there? Coming back for a visit? I almost thought it was a ghost calling. After some casual conversation, I learned that everyone who ate the fish back then had died, including my brother. Those who didn't eat the fish survived, and the tsunami never happened. I made time to go back for a quick look. The S-shop has now doubled in size, and she's doing quite well. The town's population has dwindled by more than half, leaving abundant resources for every remaining soul. I also visited what used to be our family home with my brother. Now just ruins, though a few memorial tablets still remain. Upon closer inspection, I was surprised to find Aloan's among them, but I suspect it's because Aloan had once joyfully copied a marriage vow from the newspaper herself. 6. So the memorial tablet maker genuinely believed she was my brother's beloved. In a way, she got her wish fulfilled. After reading it, I prepared to take my leave. There's nothing left for me here. I've already started a brand new life. Soon I'll have saved enough for a house and car too. The end.